and welcome back to the Captain Logan Show. 'Tis I, Captain Logan, and joining me as always is my wonderful chat moderator and producer and DVD collector extraordinaire, and guy who also has a really great YouTube channel called The Welder, and a man who's better groomed than me, and man who actually bothered to buy an arm for his microphone, DJ Martinez!
Wow, so many compliments. Like, what do you want from me? Are you trying to get, like, something out of me? Like, you're really buttering me up this evening.
I need more t-shirt designs. We don't have enough of them.
Okay, well, you've won. You've won me over. I'm feeling warm and fuzzy. That was such a good string of compliments.
You know, I was a man possessed. I got to a place I was like,
I won't get used to it.
What if I was going to review DJ?
I don't know if I'd want that to happen. That's
You know, I know we announce things too often, but on the next Captain Logan show, I'll be reviewing DJ.
Cap Reviews, his moderator.
DJ, how the heck are you, man?
I'm great. It's Tuesday. What the heck are we doing here?
Yeah, I don't know.
What is this, 2019?
We're trying to see if we can waste everyone's time. That's the whole
we're really
plan.
good at that, so.
We're really good at that. Guys, we brought the Captain Logan Show back to twice a week, and we are planning to keep it that way as long as we're able, now that my twin girls are a little bit older, and I've got a little bit more time than I did before, and lately, especially the superhero and pop culture news has been exploding. There's just so much stuff to talk about, and I feel like, you know, I mean, as long-winded as I am, I can probably make any show on any topic last 2 hours. It's not necessarily going to be good, but I can do it. But there's so much stuff happening to talk about that, and a lot of things I'm surprised haven't come up in comments yet that we could have done, lead-in topics for and whole shows on already. Once again, I'm getting error messages like we're having buffering issues. I'm going to see what I can do about that before the next live stream. The last couple of times there's been we've been fine audio-wise, but there's been some kind of visual hiccups and lost frames and stuff. I don't know why that's happening. I know that's been the story here for the last few months. Every now and again we have this issue, and DJ, internet here was just fine for like 2 years, and
we never had any problems.
It still ostensibly is, and you know what everybody's answer always is when I mention that I'm having this issue? They're like, well, you're not just using Wi-Fi, right? You're plugged in like directly into your modem, right? And I'm like, that's impossible. Like, I have to shoot down here. This is where my office is, and the modem's too far. Like, it can't be done. So that's why I had like a hub that was supposed to boost it, and it's not working as well now.
You just have to get a 70-foot cable, run it all through your entire house.
Oh, why didn't I think of that? It's a really good idea. It would probably be longer than 70 feet, though.
It's true.
Anyway.
Your dogs would be tripping down the stairs. It'd be a whole deal.
Thanks a bunch for being here for tonight's, at the moment, extra special Captain Logan show. But then pretty soon we're going to have 2 of these a week. It'll be really routine, and you're not going to bother being here twice a week. We know, you know it, I know it, but we're going to be here anyway. No, I'm kidding. You guys are wonderful. Thanks so much for being here. I also want to say thanks to everybody that came in for the very late Superhero Rewind last night that I did on Superhero Rewind Unscripted, that I did on The Lone Ranger. We had a bigger crowd for that than I expected, and it was... we had a lot of really great interaction in the comments, and that was a show I didn't know if anybody would care about, and it went really well, and it was a really interesting experience, because I felt a little bit more positive on that after my last watch than I ever have before. I had kind of experience that I wasn't expecting to have, so it was fun to share that with the live viewers, and go check that video out when you have some time to listen to something long and podcasty, which I guess is all we do here now. So, guys, we have a couple of things to bring to your attention before we get into, I guess one big thing before we get into tonight's lead-in topic. Well, no, I have 2 things. Let me do this before I talk about t-shirts. So, my dad came over tonight and brought me a really cool birthday present. My birthday is next week, and actually, I'm looking at the date. I guess it's in 3 days. I didn't even realize that. My birthday's in 3 days, and my dad got me a really cool birthday present, which I knew about before he came over, but now I've got it in my hands, so I'm going to show this to you guys. Dad, I was shocked that he came across this and thought to get it for me. So Dad got me the first and only CCG comic that I've ever had. I've never gotten anything graded. I've never bought a graded comic. I've considered it. I've had them like in my what do you call it, shopping cart on eBay and places before. Like I've almost pulled the trigger on a couple and I've never done it. But Dad got me a graded copy in 8.5, so not like super high graded, but that's whatever with this. So this is Ninja Turtles number 58. This is IDW Ninja Turtles, signed by Kevin Eastman.
Oh wow, that's really cool.
Yeah. So it's really neat. My first graded book is a signed book as well. And something I didn't realize, because I was like, well, I'm positive that's his signature, but it doesn't have a any kind of certificate or anything with it. And apparently, if something, I never thought of this, but it makes perfect sense. Dad said that if anything is graded like this by a CCG place that you trust, it's automatically like it has a certificate, because they're not going to grade a thing and put it in the plastic if it's not a real signature. So the fact that it's in this is their certificate, and also apparently it would be white across, but this particular company, which is, what is this company? CBCS. This particular company, it's yellow instead of white if it's a signed book, and I didn't know that. So yeah, that's neat. So anyway, that's what I got from my dad for my birthday, and I'm super excited about it.
Well, that's really, really, really cool. That's awesome. And your dad, I'm assuming he found that in his like comic escapades.
Yeah, Dad sells online and has a store that he does full time. Not just comics, but comics is one of the things that he's into. He's got a flea market and he does a lot of pop culture stuff, but everything else under the sun, like farm equipment, furniture, like you name it, like all kinds of stuff. And he's in a small town right off the highway. It's rural, it's real country, so everything under the sun. And I was selling comics with Dad a few years ago. We had, and I told you guys about this on the channel, some of you guys will remember this, I had my own comic and superhero themed booth at a flea market for a couple of years, and Dad and I did that together, and then he bought me out when I decided to get out of it, and he stayed in comics for a while, so he doesn't have a whole area that's just comics anymore, but he still runs across them a lot and sells mostly online now. But he came across this, I don't know where he found it, but he stumbled upon this locally, somewhere around Topeka, and sounds like a good deal on it. Did you hear that?
Was that your dad falling down the stairs? Hopefully not.
I hope not. Yeah, some kind of crash upstairs. He's still here taking care of my kids. Hopefully everything's all right up there. My apologies if I end up having to take a break and run upstairs, but I'm not hearing anybody screaming or anything, so hopefully we're good. I told him to message me if there were any issues, so I'm not being negligent with my children, everybody. But anyway, the other thing I want to mention, of course, is, and I announced this yesterday, but we have launched the TeePublic Geekvolution store, and these are all of, we have more to put up, but they're all designs by DJ Martinez, and you can get, right now, I think, 10 different designs of our logos, including the regular G that is kind of our main icon, and I've got a tattoo of, and then Superhero Rewind Unscripted, the kind of basic SR Superhero Rewind logo. This show, Captain Logan Show, has its own. I really want to get that for the show at some point. I kind of want a t-shirt of all of our shows, and I'm a little bit worried that the biggest spender on Geekvolution merchandise is going to be Geekvolution.
Well, you keep yourself in business.
I don't know if that's how that works. The Comic Vault logo, which I have not been using enough on the actual show lately, and it's wonderful. And there's a couple of things like this that I haven't been actually using on the shows where I'm like, oh yeah, DJ made these great logos. I should probably be using them. The Request logo is here. 2 different color variants for the Marvel Mania logo, a show that will eventually bring back commentaries on Marvel movies, and of course Geekvolution After Dark, which is another logo that I haven't used in a long time. And in fact, I'm going to bring the title of that back to Geekvolution After Dark instead of just Captain Logan After Dark, partly because you wanted to bring this logo back, and I'm like, okay, but like it says Geekvolution, and that was the show that I was doing with Eric, but it's been enough time now, and I usually have other people on that show, and it's not just me. that I think it's time to start calling that Geekvolution After Dark again. And then you'll see some other designs that are just curated. So these are not things that we made, but things that we get a small percentage of if you decide to buy through our store. And I just pick designs that have to do with things that I've reviewed on the channel and that I'm a big fan of. So you'll see like Star Trek and Ninja Turtles. I put a Knight shirt here.
Wow.
There's a we don't even need to put up a Read a Book logo. There just is one. There's Handy from the Tick, Read a Book. I couldn't believe somebody made that. There's the Luthor Corp logo from Smallville. So folks that have been with us on the channel for a long time will know why a lot of these things are here and how they relate to me personally. And this is all very self-indulgent and the channel at large. Right now, all of the shirts are still on sale, but only will be for another day, and some maybe even, I was going to say for just a few hours. Yeah, some of these not even a whole day at this point. So now's the time. Pull the trigger tonight or tomorrow morning, or some of these things, or all these things pretty soon will pop back up to $22, but you can get them all for just $14 right now for the regular t-shirts, and then all the other kinds of merchandise is on sale as well. So you can get what was I gonna say?
Like the other merch, like the mugs and the hoodies and stuff.
The mug specifically is the thing I was thinking of. I think that's usually like $15. You can get one for $11 right now. So now's a good time to get those things. That's another thing I want for the show. Tom suggested that. He sent me a message and was like, hey, you should get a mug that has the Geekvolution logo, because then it'll be like a late night talk show where like they always have the logo of, you know, like Letterman or you know, the Tonight Show or whatever it is. I'm like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. DJ, what do you want to mention about the t-shirt store? You've been setting all this up for us, which is wonderful of you, by the way. Thanks so much for doing that. This is all DJ, by the way.
No, thank you so much. It's been a lot of fun. It's actually really fun when you get in there and you can upload it and you can like put it wherever you want to. Like everything I've kept big and front and center right now, but we might do some like smaller, like pocket size logos and stuff in the future. And you can place it on everything. Like you can do the hoodie differently. I had to like reshape some of the stickers and magnets because some of them looked weird the way the default, and then you can like move it. The pillow looks really cool with the like a purple pillow with the Comic Vault logo on it, and then a light blue pillow with the Rewind Unscripted logo. Those look really cool. I
didn't even know that you could do a pillow until you mentioned that to me earlier today.
Yeah, it's like a square pillow with the big logo right on it.
So how do you find that? Because at the bottom of these pages, all I see are like 5 other things.
Yeah, I don't know. When you're uploading the artwork, it gives you everything.
Oh. But yeah, it's not showing them here, so we'll have to mess around with this a little bit and try to figure it out, because this is all new to us as well. By the way, shout out to TeePublic. They reached out to us, and we are partnered with them, and really super cool of them to do that for us. So make sure that you use our link in the description specifically. That's our affiliate link, and we'd really appreciate it if you'd use that, because that helps us track how we're doing with all of this. But we mostly just wanted to make these things available, and this is a thing we've talked about doing for a long time, and finally the stars just kind of aligned. Like I heard from TeePublic, and they were like, hey, do you want to do a merch store? And I was like, you know, I've been meaning to do this forever, and so this just gives me an excuse to like finally put one together again. And they're also actually affiliated with Redbubble, or I think maybe they even own Redbubble, which is the site that we used to use. And so and which I liked a lot, but we fell off of that at one point, and it was time to kind of start over, especially to get DJ's designs going, because that's not what we had before.
Yeah, and I started with the logos, but I am going to try to get some text designs up. Like people are already saying I need to do it depends or case by case in the chat. But yeah, we have a lot of ones that we want to do that are just text, that are inside jokes for the channel. And I want to do an Edible States one. I just got to remove one of the fingers on the fry box.
Oh, okay.
so he has the appropriate number of fingers.
Oh yeah, he's got too many fingers. We screwed that up.
So after I make that change, I'll get that one up, because that'll be a cool one. But yeah, it's really fun. I recommend having your own TV store or T-shirt store if you get the chance, because it's kind of fun.
There's a lot of like you said, inside jokes and kind of geekvolution memes that people want on shirts. And we've heard you guys, and we're definitely going to do some of that. We just wanted to launch with the things that we had put together and figured out already that we had our logo designs for, and a lot of that stuff is just text, and we just have to decide how exactly we want to format it. But a couple other things that we'll definitely have are, because Cheese, I want to do a Stop Announcing Things shirt, and the big one for me is There Are No Exits That Way Wolverine. We have to have that shirt. And again, these are all things that I want to buy and just wear on the channel.
Yeah. So that'll be a lot of fun. I want to get a lot too. I might be the second biggest spender of the store.
We will also tonight be giving away a T-shirt to the viewer who gives us a topic that I like the most in this evening. That was a horrible sentence, so I'm going to say it again. Whoever throws out my favorite question or topic this evening is going to get a T-shirt, and I want to make sure, DJ, that we do enough pre-written tonight as well. So this isn't just about super chats. It's not put in a super chat and you have a chance at winning a T-shirt. Just ask questions and make comments, and of course the super chats will be in all of that as well, because I don't want to leave those out just because people paid money. So you'll just have to trust me that I'm not basing this on It is entirely possible, and I think we've done this before when we've kind of done giveaway things, not usually physical objects, but just when we've done some kind of a contest where you can win with a pre-written as well. We just have to make sure that I've definitely had contest winners that did pre-written, but we just have to make sure that we remember to do a few of those as well this evening. So anyway, tonight's lead-in topic. So, as always, if you want to make sure that your question or comment or idea, concern, topic is talked about in the show tonight, you can leave a super chat in any dollar amount, and I will guarantee that. But you can also leave regular questions and comments, and again, you'll have a chance at a T-shirt if you participate in that. And make sure that you tag at DJ Martinez, because he's the chat moderator, at The Welder, or at T-Shirt Man. DJ will answer to any of these things and more, I am sure, as long as they're not horribly lewd. Although, if it's a wonderful question, he may not even mind that. Okay, so tonight's don't do that. Tonight's lead-in topic is superhero fatigue. We're going to revisit this. Obviously, this is a thing that we've talked about numerous times on the channel before. This is not new. Oh, wow. How come Geekvolution in 215 shows has never talked about people being tired of superhero movies? No, we do this a lot, but it's been coming up in the news recently because there is a poll that Comic Book Resources brought up, and I don't know if they actually did this poll. I haven't looked at this in a couple of days. No, Morning Consult did a poll suggesting that interest in superhero movies in general is on the decline. Interest in superhero films, this is according to comicbookresources.com, interest in superhero films is declining even among fans of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. A new poll finds the survey of 2,200 adults released Thursday by Morning Consult arrives in the wake of Marvel Studios Comic-Con international announcements, which includes 2 Avengers films for 2025. And because I took the worst possible month off, we have not really talked about that slate, the Marvel 5 and 6, and I was Phase 5 and 6, and I was hoping that by this point I would have already done a speculation cast on the MCU with Austin, but we have not gotten to that yet because we've been doing Request Month, and there have been some kind of a lot of new things that we've been wanting to review and stuff, so I'm going to try to work that in soon, and if I don't manage it, maybe we'll just talk about some of that slate on Thursday, even though it's kind of couple-week-old news at this point, and I could still do a speculation cast on top of it, because we could just go through the list, and I could just give, my quick responses, and then the speculation cast is, where do we think we're going to be in 5 or 10 years' time with the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Where is everything going? Who do we think is going to be on, Avengers teams, and, all of that fun stuff. So, anyway, but looking at this poll, Conducted July 30 to 31st, the poll found 59% of adults say they enjoy superhero movies, down from 64% in November of 2021, just the previous year, and not even a whole year before that. Meanwhile, the share of adults who don't enjoy superhero films climbed 5 points, from 36% to 41%. Morning Consult notes that number has increased 9 points since 2018. I want to be the guy whose job it is to conduct a poll to see if people give a crap about superhero movies.
I don't think that's his only job.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure he does other things.
He probably also has to do the poll that's like, who wants a second Breaking Bad spinoff that's not a crappy cartoon nobody cares about? Adding fuel to the I don't know if that show's going to be crappy, but I don't understand why it's being made. Adding fuel to the long-running debate about superhero fatigue, quotes, the findings come as some of Marvel's Phase 4 films haven't, let's say, been as fully embraced by fans as previous MCU releases. No Way Home being the major exception, $1.9 billion at the global box office. And that's a thing I kind of want to talk about with all of this, why that movie specifically did so much better than a lot of the other recent MCU movies, and why it broke records and was absolutely insane. Arguably, it doesn't have as much to do with the MCU as it does with the history of Spider-Man movies and the perceived history, well, not even perceived, but just the precedent that's set, kind of making history with merging different franchises together, which had never been done before. So anyway, Austin, I'm sorry, I've been doing a lot of shows with Austin lately. DJ, so what do you make of this? Do you think there is very much to make of this? Like, is 5 points in either direction with each of those sets of numbers that big of a deal? Like, how concerned should we be about this? Does it tell us anything?
Yeah, so that's the thing, is I hear a lot of people, even just with seeing the thumbnail, people jumping in the chat like, "Oh, this is ridiculous. It's nowhere near fatigue," but it's like, it's one of the biggest depends questions, right? Like, because it all depends on what your definition of fatigue is.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
We're not saying like no one's ever going to watch another superhero movie like tomorrow, but we're just because you called it the Renaissance. Like,
yeah.
Did we go over the peak?
Yep.
Is it never going to get as good as Endgame? I'm not saying quality. I'm just saying like popular.
Well, and there's so many different ways to look at this too, right? Like, is the Renaissance over in that people don't feel like they're seeing as many great superhero movies as before, or it's not being as embraced by, hoity-toity movie people, like, The Dark Knight was a real movie, and so, like, there's different metrics, there's different measures,
and I think, like, and also, even by the main public, the cinema score on like Eternals, Love and Thunder, and Doctor Strange are like 3 of the lowest scores of any MCU movie ever.
Yeah.
So it's hard to tell how
you're
much
seeing
of that
Rotten Tomatoes scores finally dipping below 50%. That's never happened before.
Yeah, like is any of that because of fatigue, or were those 3 movies just not quality, or were not well made, or were they just never going to be popular with audiences? I don't.
Yeah.
It's a lot of factors.
Real quick, am I right about that? That we finally had an MCU movie that dipped under the 50%?
Oh, yeah, Eternals.
Yeah.
Was.
You didn't throw out a percentage number when you said that, or if you did, I missed it, and I was like...
Well, I was talking about cinema score, which usually
okay.
A and above for MCU movies, even like Dark World, but like we're finally dipping into some Bs, and
yeah.
I think even a B minus. And that's like fresh out the door, like even right in the middle of the hype still. Like, you just saw the movie, you walked out the door, and they take those scores. So yeah, it's and I mean, we're just talking about Marvel. Obviously there's other studios. There's one mainly. But,
this is admittedly a really loaded question, and we could spend 2 hours talking about it, and we might, if that's what people end up wanting to talk about in the comments and super chats, but I'm not going to intentionally take it to all the places I could take it tonight, but I just wanted to kind of broach this and say it does, at least to me, it seem like a lot of people are not as interested as they once were in superhero movies at large and MCU in particular. And I've, of course, talked about this a lot and said this before, but if I were MCU right now, the main thing I would do is just start slowing down a little bit, backing off the output some, because some people I'm hearing are just kind of out, or just kind of done until individual projects that they, from any studio, be it Warner's or Marvel Studios or beyond, are out until like a singular movie grabs their attention and they can just watch it like a movie, where they don't have to be invested in a whole universe or be concerned about a thing as a franchise or whatever. And then other people that aren't totally out but are just it's not special anymore. It's not exciting to them anymore. They'll look at it because they still like superhero movies. They like the genre. Some people are invested enough in MCU to still look at all of it, or eventually, or the things that they like. Like I'm hearing a lot of people talking about, you're either like still hip deep in the MCU and looking at everything, or you're completely done with it, or maybe there's like the one franchise you care about. There's even like a fourth subsect though, which is people who, and I may be in this category, people who intend to look at all of it eventually, but there's no keeping up with it. Like, as it's coming out, you almost have to do the equivalent of waiting for trade now, because it's like, well, unless you like take
Disney
a night,
Plus is trades. That's amazing.
You got to take a night out of your week every week now, maybe two, to make sure that you're keeping up with everything that the MCU is doing, and that's a little bit too much for people. And so, I think the answer to the question I posed in the title is impossible to say. That's a historical question. We're not actually going to know that for sure until we get years past it. Because if the Batman has a successful franchise and more of its movies are beloved, it might start to feel like the superhero renaissance again. If Joker 2 is killer, that could happen. If the next Avengers movie people love on the level of Infinity War, we're gonna be back to that place, and it might feel to some people like a kind of second, like a waning renaissance that gets a second wind or something, So
Yeah.
it is a loaded question. It is an impossible question to answer, but I think a lot of people are feeling that way about it. And this is very anecdotal, and I promise we'll start getting to live questions here in a minute, but I was fascinated by what happened today when I posted about this on social media. Because in the tab on YouTube, I had a lot of responses to this, and I wasn't even asking a question. I was just saying this is the topic this evening, and there was a lot of engagement. So I want to read some of these responses real quick, because this is, again, anecdotal, but I think it is telling that so many different people have such a different reaction and take to this. It tells you that we're not all excited on the same level as we once were. At the very, as a lot of us once were. At the very least, you have, and I think one of the commenters even mentions this, but at the very least, you have a lot of movies that are polarizing, like a lot more that are polarizing than used to be, and that kind of tells you something. People start to get more critical when they're not sure they care as much, right? I think that's kind of where we're at. If it's not special, if it's not a big deal anymore, because because there's so many coming out at you all the time, even if they were all great, if they were all really great, I don't know that oversaturation would be as big of a deal. That's part of it too, is like if people are perceiving mediocre quality, but there's too much of it, then that becomes a problem. But even if it was all just spectacular, I think you still would have some people that are just like, look, I don't have time. It's too much of a commitment.
Mm-hmm. And it's hard, right? Because even if everyone agreed that the quality was great, there would be a dip anyway, because we're not getting Captain America, we're not getting Iron Man, we're not getting Hulk. Like, it's the less popular characters, which we all knew was not going to be as popular. Like, if they were great, obviously they could keep the audience, but I think there would still be a little bit of a dip anyway.
Yep, that was a point I was going to make later as well. Before I read these, since you've said that, let me also piggyback off of that and say that I think part of the problem is MCU's strategy and lack of communication, because their MO now is different from what it used to be, and I don't think they made it clear enough to mainstream audiences how they expected you. Or if they were smart, I think this is what they would say. Maybe they do kind of expect everyone to look at everything, but that isn't. the way they seem to be. That isn't the way that you would expect them to be thinking or behaving when you look at their output and you look at, to their credit, all the different audiences that especially the Disney Plus shows seem to all be aimed at, right? Like, Miss Marvel does not look like a show that everybody is necessarily expected to watch, and I have a lot of respect for them for that. Moon Knight doesn't look like a thing that would necessarily appeal to everybody. The big difference between Marvel now and Marvel during, Phase 2 is they put out few enough things that if you cared about all of it, it was reasonable to expect that you might be able to go to the theater and see everything. Even when it was 3 movies a year, it's just movies. And you'd be like, okay, I've seen everything, and if you build on something in an Iron Man movie that was brought up in a Captain America movie, I understood that reference, and I'll appreciate that you're rewarding me for paying attention and seeing all of the stuff you're making. And the idea was always you don't necessarily have to see all of it. Like, Guardians is kind of detached, and it wasn't until Civil War that the Russos finally threw their hands in the air and said, okay, we're going to stop trying to explain everything for an audience that just walked in. Like, if you're just walking in now, that's on you. There's too many characters. You're going to have to go back and at least watch the Captain America movies before you, and probably Iron Man, before you see this, okay? But now, it seems like the strategy is very much more, and it's the streaming strategy we keep talking about, which is more is more. Put out as much streaming content as humanly possible to get people to stay interested in your streaming service. If you're going to do that with Marvel, now you've made it comic books in a way that it wasn't before. We don't complain about this with comics, right? We don't go, there's too many we do to some degree, but you've never expected a comic book company, a comic book house, to make it easy and reasonable for a person to read every single thing that comes out from that house, at least not in my lifetime. I think at one time we also kind of had that with those, but you always would have, 30, 40 plus titles, in my lifetime, usually more than that, where, not everybody's reading Avengers, not everybody's reading Iron Man. You might be a fan of one character, you might be a fan of 5, you're probably not going to look at their whole slate, and you're not going, well, that's stupid, it's not fair to people if you don't make it cost effective for them and you oversaturate it with too many titles. Again, we have put out too many titles, we have made it not cost effective, but I don't think most people ever expect, again, at least in my lifetime, to read every single thing that comes out from DC Comics, every single thing that comes out from Marvel Comics. The biggest mistake, besides not taking time off after Endgame, I said this back then, and I think I'm going to be vindicated on this. I think history will vindicate me on this. We should have taken a year off before the next Spider-Man movie came out. And you might say, oh, but he's getting older, and with Spider-Man, you need to get those movies out sooner and all of that. Yeah, fine. Make the next one and then put them out 6 months apart from each other. Okay, I'm just saying
well,
that
we did have a year off right after that Spider-Man movie because
but they didn't. But they weren't planning on it. They didn't want to, and the fact that people's interest isn't even more waned than it is, partly we might have COVID to thank for it, in a way. You know what I mean? I kind of predicted more of this would happen by now. And again, I'm often wrong about things, but this was a thing. I just have been worried that with oversaturation and with some of the formulaic stuff and all of that they're getting. They're maybe making some of the mistakes that Arrowverse made, and I've always been afraid of a point of no return with them. So anyway, I think, DJ, besides that, the biggest mistake they made was continuing with the phase numbers. Knock that off. Get rid of that whole thing. It shouldn't be about phases anymore. Phase suggests that you're supposed to look at everything. Everything in the phase, including Disney Plus shows, they put those in there too, is leading toward whatever next big event we're doing and all of that. And I think what they should be doing is make it a lot clearer what things you need to look at in order to watch the quote-unquote event films, and what things you can skip if you don't really need them. Some kind of... And you'd have to have your ducks in maybe more of a row than is possible, with different creators making different things. But boy, in a perfect world, I'd have the whole thing color-coded before I would have the phase thing.
Yeah, that's kind of it's at this point it just seems just routine, just so they can have a big launch, big display at the Comic-Con, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is just a big reveal. This is Phase 4, Phase 5. Like, you don't have to. You can be working on that behind the scenes, but you don't have to like tell us that. I don't know. That seems. Yeah, especially
that's where the strategy has continued to be what it was early on, and I think that's a mistake. Like, because they're going, well, we have to keep our consumer confidence by showing people that we have things in the pipeline and things in the works, and all it does for some people still get really excited about those timelines and all of that. But DJ, I think most of us are overwhelmed by it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think what you're talking about, I think COVID actually contributed to the oversaturation a little bit because they missed out that whole year, and then they put out everything in that one year. Last year we got everything, and it was way too much, and nobody could keep up with all that stuff.
But they're also rushing things so fast that I'm not convinced that next year's slate won't be just as big as this year's.
Yeah. I ultimately think fatigue is good, or I think it would be good if we got a little fatigue, because they would slow down.
Yeah.
And it would go back to getting 2 Marvel movies a year. Like, I don't ever want superhero movies to go away.
Yeah.
Like, that's not what I'm saying. But I also don't want them to be the biggest take of Hollywood and be what everyone is trying to do. I want it to be just a genre that we get.
I want some variety.
Yeah.
I want variety in superhero, and I want other things that aren't superhero.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I feel like if they slow down and take their time on them, maybe they don't put out 2 every single year. Maybe they give them, because they don't give them enough time to make it. They give the visual effects artists like 6 months to do all the visual effects when there's like hundreds and hundreds of VFX shots in these movies, and it's just they're rushing them out just to meet a stupid deadline. I don't know. It seems like they're just trying to stay relevant as long as they can, because they know the bubble's going to burst at some point. So like, get as many out of it.
And I don't think the bubble exactly has to burst if we were careful about it. It's lasted this long. It's like pop figures. That shouldn't have lasted this long. People are still buying them. It's weird. Maybe the bubble doesn't have to burst. Maybe you just need to not have the approach of a company that's expecting to, at some point, have all its shareholders leave and sell the company. Because that's kind of what it feels like when you describe it that way.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, I don't know how long it can last. You were talking about comparing it to comics, just comparing it to other movie studios. Like, nobody says, okay, I'm going to watch every Sony movie.
Yeah.
I'm going to watch every one. Like,
I had
it's
that
weird
thought.
that a studio, that's what messes with everything. Like, it's a movie studio, but it's also a series. Everything.
That's what's risky about it, right? Is that and that's what happened to Arrowverse. You have with Marvel, you have a studio where everything's in the same continuity, which means we always talk about it like multiple franchises. It's one franchise, and it is possible to take the whole kit and caboodle if people just are not invested anymore. And you could say, well, yeah, but if they'll just put out like individual movies that are really good that people care about, people will keep seeing them. That's true, but it could hurt those movies too, because again, they trained us, right? For like 10 years, 11 years, up into Endgame, they trained us to watch everything, to want to see everything. And they would say, oh, you don't have to. And there were some people that didn't. But most people I know, most and mainstream moviegoers that don't read comics and didn't care about superheroes before are looking at everything because it was a novelty, because it was exciting that you had a franchise that was actually a bunch of smaller franchises all together. And now they've oversaturated it to the point where it's difficult for people to make that commitment, even that want to. And then once it's almost like a crying wolf kind of thing. When you've had 3 or 4 Disney Plus shows in a row that a lot of people feel like didn't stick the landing, now they're going, okay, it's a chore to watch these things. Like, I want to, but I'm not sure I trust that they'll be good enough to spend my time on every week. And then they go, but I also don't know which of them I need to see for the next movie that comes out that might relate back to it. And you could say, well, like, most of that stuff probably will just be, like minor connections, and it won't be, all that important that you look at it. But I don't know. I was glad that I saw WandaVision before I saw Doctor Strange, and there's no telling how much of that. Well, there's some telling. We know of certain. I won't get into specifics, but certain Disney Plus shows that are going to inform and set up other things. And the question is going to be, if you didn't see the setup, will you be confused, or will you wish that you had looked at that? And we won't know that until we see those things. But not knowing which things are going to matter is going to make people either watch all of them and maybe not enjoy them all and find it to be a chore and consider giving up, or just not bothering with those things and then being kind of sad that they don't want to, because you trained us for a decade to watch everything.
And they've also trained us for a decade that these are how these movies feel. They all feel exactly the same way. And now they make two movies like Doctor Strange and Eternals, which feel different.
Yeah.
And people don't like them. So now they've dug themselves in a hole where they can't branch out at all. They have to continue to make them all have the exact same humor and the same tone.
And that's the potential downfall. And I've always said that Marvel, no matter what they do, still has at least 10 years left, because it's been such a phenomenon, and because they had such consumer confidence for so long, that they will limp along for a long time before the whole thing falls apart, if that ever happens. Absolutely. Like, this isn't me saying that it's possible for the whole thing to fall apart and be a train wreck, and it's not Star Wars, because they didn't start Star Wars successful enough after that very first movie that they did. But Star Wars also proved to us that a giant juggernaut like this, that's supposed to be a shared universe with a whole bunch of different movies in it, is not necessarily going to be financially viable just because it's a huge property like Star Wars. And it is possible to give us too much, unless it's not possible to give us too much of a good thing, because enough people felt like Star Wars was not a good thing that they didn't go see it. So that's still hard to say. Like, if everybody was loving everything Marvel was putting out right now, I think some people would be complaining that there was too much of it. But I don't know if that poll would say the same thing it does. Like, it's hard to say. Okay, so I was going to read some of these comments, but we're already like 40 minutes. Maybe I'll do a couple real quick, but I just wanted to make the point that so many people have different feelings about all of this, and we're all very splintered with it. SS Jerry, the problem is the MCU is way too hard to keep up with. So many shows and movies now, and other films aren't unique enough and seem to want to copy the MCU. That's a terrific point as far as other companies and franchises, other studios are concerned. He also says, I want movies like Dredd, Constantine, and Split, and studios need to allow directors to make rated R films if they want to be. Nick Young, I think fatigue is setting in because of how much is being put out there and lack of quality. Shows like Arrow and The Flash went in decline, while Batwoman was trash from the start. There's hardly any breathing room anymore when it comes to Marvel because of Disney Plus, when X show is airing the same week as a new movie is coming out. Then we've got writers who want to do their own things with the characters, and yes, focus on external characteristics, instead of what made them interesting in the comics in the first place, or they just don't have the correct tone, or the stories just aren't engaging enough. A break really is needed, especially for Marvel. We're going to hit burnout pretty soon. Christian Ogden, I would only argue that the MCU is in its decline. Still putting out okay stuff, nothing's been awful, just a lot of mediocrity. But when we've gotten stuff like The Boys, Batman, Peacemaker, and Doctor Strange 2, all in a span of 6 months, I can't say the genre itself is in decline. And certainly there's still a lot of stuff that people like in a vacuum. So, like, I think it's possible that some people are simultaneously saying, like, I'm tired of superhero as a genre, but I'm still interested in things that don't scream superhero at me, that might come from that place, if that makes any sense. Like, the people that love The Boys don't really talk about The Boys that hard like a superhero show. I mean, it is a superhero show, but, I mean, I think there's a lot of people looking at that might be kind of done with mainstream superhero stuff. So anyway.
Yeah, and we've got some comments pertaining to this topic, so I'll go ahead and go to those ones first.
Absolutely, let's do that. Don't forget, somebody's getting a t-shirt tonight. Go ahead. And I'll let you pick the design, by the way. It doesn't have to be the Captain Logan Show shirt.
Oh, sweet.
It does have to be one of DJ's designs, but it doesn't have to be the Captain Logan Show shirt. I will cry if you don't pick that one, but it doesn't have to be. I'm kidding. Go ahead, DJ.
Checkers the Inventor, $5 super chat. Thank you, man. I think there is a feeling like we aren't building towards anything. There also isn't a central figure in either DC, Marvel like Tony and Cap, or Bruce and Clark.
Yeah, and I think if you'd taken more time off in between Endgame and the very next thing you did, and then and again, you're right, because of COVID, we kind of had to do that. But if that had been the strategy in the first place, they would have made different things coming out the gate of that. Black Widow would not have been the very next thing we got, right? Like, you go to a flashback movie that comes out that happens right after Civil War.
Well, that was just that was a mistake anyway. Like, there's no time that can come out except for after Civil War. Like,
that was backtrack. Oh, oops! I guess we should have made that movie. So. I want to look at I want to use the word phase, but in a different way. I think what maybe should have happened, and I'm just spitballing here, is you get I'm trying to think of a better word because of the way the word phase has been used by the Marvel, by MCU. But let's say you have this kind of era, right? I'll say era of Marvel that's the whole, the first 3 phases, and it's the whole Infinity War thing, right? And then the next section of it, now we're saying, I guess, is like the multiverse arc or whatever. But I think what might have been smarter would be to kind of open up, like you did with the MCU in the first place, with some singular movies that don't feel like they have much to do at all with anything that came before. It still needs to feel like it fits in that world. Obviously, you don't want to ignore the fact that superheroes exist, and just explore and we did this a little bit, and I'm glad that we did deal with it, but make the beginning of the next phase like an aftermath thing. Make it about exploring what the world is like now, 5 years after the blip, where people are trying to like put their lives back together and stuff, and pick the kind of underdog, maybe street level heroes that would make sense to explore that kind of stuff with in the first place, and then start to eventually build to another Avengers-like movie after that, and just don't make it real clear what like with the first place. We didn't really know about the Infinity thing right away. Just like get people interested in individual characters, and then start building toward things again, and then eventually you can like branch back out, get bigger again, and go, now we're doing these real big MCU things again, and start bringing in more of like the characters that we had in the first place and stuff. I don't know that I would continue franchises for a while. I wouldn't do a Doctor Strange 2. I wouldn't do right? Like, just wait a little bit for that stuff. Just, I mean, I only mean like 2 or 3 years, but just have like you did between 2008 and 2010, just have 3 or 4 movies that kind of stand alone and work as movies, and then go, oh yeah, that's right, there's this Marvel Cinematic Universe, and start doing more of the world building stuff. Again, I think that is a case, maybe I'm totally off in left field on this, but I think that that's a case where maybe you can repeat history. And it might work. But I don't know. It's really hard to say what you do after that. Alternatively, maybe just don't make Endgame feel as much like an ending of the whole thing. Some of the problem lies with Endgame, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting that they let them be so definitive with that movie for so many of the characters.
Smarty Pants Tutoring says, it's funny what Cap is saying because that really was Feige's strategy in the beginning. He was more interested in getting people to like these characters. And if that's what he was thinking with some of the new characters that they've come out with, like with Eternals, like with Shang-Chi, etc., then the thing is you just can't oversaturate. You can't introduce a bazillion characters like with Disney Plus and stuff that too many feel to people like second stringers and B-list heroes and like people taking up old mantles. Because you're right with what you said earlier, DJ, that part of the issue is, well, we don't have a lot of those tentpole characters that got people to keep going to the theater, which is why you have to kind of invent them, like from the ground up. I don't know. I don't have the perfect answer or anything. I'm like I said, I'm just kind of spitballing in the moment. But
the perfect answer is they could have went to street level stuff if they hadn't just done all that on Netflix.
Yeah.
All of the like that was exactly what you were saying. How are all the little superhero characters dealing with the big uh, catastrophic event that just happened? But they did that. Maybe you can watch the Netflix shows, and instead of the incident being New York, it can just be the blip. That's
Yeah.
what they're all talking about.
I mean, it's not. It doesn't work, but it'd be great if it did. Like, yeah.
But yeah, that's what I liked about. That's why I like Shang-Chi, because it was just in the Marvel world and it was different. But then at the end, of course, we have to make him an Avenger, and he has to have like crazy super Avenger powers, and he has to run into Captain Marvel and Hulk with the sling on his arm. Like, we can't just let it be a movie. Everything has to be leading somewhere, which drives me nuts.
If the idea wasn't, I don't mean to keep harping on the same thing, but if the idea was supposed to be now after Endgame, we're gonna give you so much that you can branch out and enjoy what you want to and ignore what you don't. They just needed to communicate that better, and I'm not convinced that that's actually the strategy. It feels like it has to be, and yet there's also this, I don't want to say, I don't know if entitlement is the right word, but there's just this sort of like feeling of, too big to fail, or like people are so invested in the Marvel Cinematic Universe in the first place that of course they'll keep watching, and of course they're watching everything, and they're keeping track of like all of the little details and breadcrumbs that we're setting and all of that. And then the other thing too is, you have to have your ducks more in a row and be better at continuity than the MCU is. You cannot establish the word multiverse and now it means two entirely different things when we finally get to multiverse. You can't do that. Like, how did you not learn your lesson from the very first movie you made with the SHIELD thing? Like, and at all, and like Thanos being a completely different character once we get to Infinity War, and like et cetera, et cetera. How did you not learn your lesson from that stuff? Like, I don't know.
Because it all worked. Like, they didn't.
They made money.
Yeah, you don't learn a lesson unless like something goes bad for you.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Sorry, there was a comment that somebody made that I wanted to mention, and I'm not seeing it right away, so I might have to look at this for a minute. Well, anyway, let's go back to live comments, DJ.
Yeah, sure. We got a super chat from Chewbacca's Lover. He says, I feel like nothing is made for me anymore. They are all Twitter/TikTok kids. It's funny that he put Twitter and TikTok together, because that's two different generations. And then he says, "I'm not even 30."
With respect, that just proves how out of touch you are. If you no, I mean, I sympathize with that. It's like, if you don't even know what Twitter is, then yeah, like, it's all just for people that keep up with social media. I don't care about any of this stuff.
Yeah, he says, "I'm not even 30, but like everything is for people far younger than me." And I wanted to. This is very interesting, because in that article that you sent me about the superhero fatigue, the only generation that went up instead of down for interest in superhero movies was Gen Z, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, I didn't read the rest of that article, but yeah, I mean,
every other generation went down, and Gen Z went up a good bit. It was like from like 59 to 64% people were excited about superhero movies. So that's interesting.
Do you feel that way? Do you feel like you're being left out more and more as a viewer?
It's tough, man, because I'm 2008, I was 15, man. I've changed so much. I can't tell how much of it is like, okay, were they always like this and I just changed as a person? Or it's really hard to tell how much of it is me changing and how much of it is the movies changing, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, the meme humor and all of that is new.
Oh yeah, that's not in phase one as much.
That stuff is definitely new. There's another, I can't find it, but there's another commenter that said that from the post that I made earlier today in the community tab, there was somebody, I couldn't think of community tab earlier. That's the tab, the community tab. There was somebody who suggested that we're just like more critical of it now because there's so much more of these things, and that like phase 2 and 3 had mediocre movies also, but people are talking about it like the MCU used to be perfect and now it's got issues. And I think Maybe there's a little bit of that.
Yeah.
With respect, I think like I see why that commenter is saying that. I think the bigger, I think the reason that you're seeing that more though is because there is. It was kind of easier for people to look past certain flaws in things when it was new and when there were fewer of them. Where like they were events and it was exciting and it was like, yay, we're getting superhero things. Isn't this a big deal? And now it's everywhere and it's so much of TV and movies and everything that when it's oversaturated and I keep saying that, using that word, and when you don't have time to look at everything and when your time gets more precious.
Mm-hmm. That's another huge thing.
Then it's harder to look past those things. I still don't understand comic fans that look at every. I still see this, that look at every superhero thing like, thank God we make superhero movies, and don't really have much of a critical eye because they're just grateful that we have these things. I don't know how to look at it like that. I think at one time I did kind of have that. Like early 2000s, Fantastic Four is a better movie in 2005.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
we were getting all of them, man. It was
Daredevil was a better movie in 2003, and also there were just a lot of precedent set later for more sophisticated storytelling in these kinds of movies, in general. And so our standards are a little bit higher now. And then I think with MCU, for some of us, the standards got a little bit lower again, maybe just because of the history that was being made. And I think, again, with respect to I just have to call it like I'm seeing it, guys, because I know a lot of you guys love the new Spider-Man movie in a way that DJ and I don't, and I like it more than DJ does. But that, I think, is another thing where people are maybe not as critical of some of the story issues and things with that movie because it's making history, because it's a big deal, it's a big event thing, and you're seeing things that you never thought you'd get to see before, and so you're going to look past some of those things. I think. Like with Ragnarok, people love that movie. It was a huge deal. It was one of the most beloved MCU movies. I hate it, and I still hate it. And a lot of people, the reasoning I hear for why they love that movie is because it seemed fresh and it was doing things that had never been done before. And in my opinion, a lot of those very same things are done in its sequel. And the same people that loved Ragnarok hated that movie. It's really interesting.
It's crazy. It's all expectations. It's all like right place, right time, right? Like, you could have flipped them. I bet you could have flipped them. I bet you could have released Love and Thunder. We need to go to an alternate universe and release Love and Thunder first.
Yeah.
Everyone
and how well
loves
does that
it,
do?
And then release Ragnarok and everyone hates it.
I wonder. I really do. People are going to feel insulted for us saying that, but again, I'm just calling it like I'm seeing it. Like, I really wonder. I really wonder.
There's a lot of people I like and respect that like Ragnarok. Connor likes Ragnarok, and we're good friends.
Yeah.
I'm not saying anything about people who like it, and I haven't seen Love and Thunder. I'm just going off you and other people that I've said that it's very similar.
Let's look at a real quick. I'm not going to read everything in this article, but I want to look at the list. So, DJ, here is a list I found. This just came out July 22nd, so this is recent. 10 signs that audiences and critics are finally getting superhero fatigue. Let's see how many of these we agree with, DJ. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Number 10, storylines are becoming too repetitive. Do you agree with that? Many viewers feel the plots are becoming too predictable. Without anything to change of the pace now and then, the movies feel repetitive.
I would agree they feel repetitive, but I don't know how new of an issue that is. I think we just have more.
Yeah, sure.
We have always had repetitive superhero movies pretty much since Spider-Man.
But you could say law of diminishing returns. Like the longer that goes on, the bigger of a problem it might be for people, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. I don't think stories are becoming more repetitive like it says. I think we've just got so many of them that it's more apparent.
This one I'm totally with them on, and this is a thing that you brought up. Fans are unhappy about some characters retiring. Now, I don't know why Wonder Woman is in the shot, because I don't know that Gal Gadot is retiring, but whatever. To keep things fresh, many superhero films featured different character rosters than they started with. However, that freshness has come at the cost of some significant fan favorites. And some of that, there's nothing you can do about, some of that is not the studio's fault.
People get old, yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes, tragically, they die. Like in the case of Chadwick Boseman, who I think a lot of us kind of expected to be like the kind of saving grace of the next phase of MCU,
Yeah, man.
where we still had like, and I don't mean, by the way, to contradict myself when I say that we should have like started with kind of a new crop, and then I'm just saying for like maybe a couple of years, maybe do like one movie somewhere like that's more cordoned off, like a Black Panther 2 or something, but like by and large just have, 3 or 6 movies that didn't have as much to do with all the world building of the MCU and just kind of ease people back into it, just make movies, and then just, blow our minds with some big event thing is what I would have liked. But anyway, I think we all expected Chadwick Boseman to be, and I think some of us saw him as kind of the third in like a triad. Where like Captain America, Iron Man, and then I guess you have Black Panther is like the next most popular.
Well, Black Panther was supposed
Spider-Man
to be
maybe, but like forget the teenagers for a second, you know what I mean? Because now that's becoming like a whole subset of superheroes with Marvel, which I like in principle, but there's just too much of it all at once anyway. And anyway, what
I was gonna say Black Panther was supposed to be the new Captain America, and then Spider-Man would take over for Iron Man, and Captain Marvel was supposed to be like the new Thor cosmic character. Like that was the new triad, and then it kind of just.
A good point, because Thor would have been the other one. But he feels like a totally different character to me now, so.
Yeah.
Critic reviews are more mixed than ever. I brought this up. I agree with this.
Yeah, that's a fact.
That's a sign. Yeah. Well, and this isn't like reasons for it. This is just like signs that it's happening. I agree with that. The movies often rely on cameos.
Why is Superman there for that one?
Because
these pictures were just randomized.
Shazam, I guess.
But that's from BVS.
Because he had that. Yeah, but you can't use a picture of him at the end of Shazam because his head's not there. That's not even really a cameo.
Not even really a cameo.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. Okay. So these pictures have nothing to do with anything. This might be a total nonsense article, but I just wanted to. I found this and I agreed with some of these points and didn't agree with others, so I thought I would bring it up. But do you agree that that's a sign or a factor?
I don't know. I think they've always been doing cameos at Marvel anyway. Like I think they would have stuck Hulk in as cameos, like dragged Ruffalo out of his home and forced him to do cameos anyway because they can't do Hulk movies. So
I mean, the movie that friends of mine complain about that most for is the one that made almost $2 billion with Spider-Man. Well, yeah,
that's just like it's its own thing. Like it's not even an MCU movie, really.
Nearly every new superhero release is besieged. Good word choice, with speculation about which characters will have cameos in the film. Whenever suspected cameos don't happen or don't live up to the hype, audiences find themselves disappointed. In turn, they become more dissatisfied with the film itself. I think the problem with that notion is just that you went to cameo as opposed to just... And some of this is just the internet age we live in, is just people trying to figure out like every morsel of a movie, put the whole story together in their head, and then they go to the movie and it's not as interesting as they thought it would be. But I don't know that that's affecting at least bottom line, really. I mean, I know this is supposed to just be like a sign of this, but like, because the people that do that do it with everything and then keep coming back.
Yeah. The people that are like looking at every single scrap of information before the movie comes out and then are disappointed.
So I'm not totally
still going back.
Sure about that. Online reviewers feel underwhelmed too. And that's not a bad point because you used to see probably more YouTube reviewers kind of screaming the praises of at least the MCU and
that was a good photo for once. They actually put a good photo on that one. It was Love and Thunder.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 5, superhero movies are starting to flop. Another good point, because not a lot of them had. Like when you have, and that's a good picture for that too, because Justice League should have been Avengers again, and it wasn't. It's crazy that a movie that finally puts all those characters on screen doesn't make money, no matter what it is.
Yeah. So
that's a good point. I agree with that, because we weren't 6 years ago really seeing a lot of superhero flops. The MCU had not had one, and until you got to the DCEU, they just weren't really making
Green
movies.
Lantern.
Yeah, Green Lantern didn't do. I was just gonna say they made Batman movies and they did well, and those were the things they had that anybody cared about.
Yeah.
Surveys show a decline in enthusiasm. Well, we read one, so we know that's true. Box office sales for some films drop rapidly. That's good. Yeah. That's true.
The fact that Thor's like number 5 or 6 of the on the charts for the whole year, like no one saw that coming.
Yeah,
it's like at 300,000 or 400,000 in America.
And before that, the most famous of them was BVS, the 70% drop from week 1 to week 2.
Mm-hmm.
One of the most merchandised films of all time. Some directors criticize the genre. I wouldn't put this at number 2. I don't know how... The 1 and 2 here, I think, are kind of weird. That like just that these are the numbers of it. Like the biggest sign that superhero movies are in decline is that directors have issues with mainstream popcorn things taking away from their more art house things.
Yeah, in other news, the sky is blue. Like, duh.
While okay, let's give it the benefit of the doubt and read part of this, shall we? While some very talented directors are supportive of the superhero genre, there are plenty who think it's a negative part of the Hollywood landscape. Scorsese was among the first to publicly declare his dislike for the genre, and many have come to agree with him. Most directors who criticize the genre cite the overly formulaic nature of the films as their main qualm. But here's the thing, I was hearing that back during, and like, yeah, some of those bigger directors didn't come out and start saying it until later, but that actually isn't a sign of decline. That's a sign of it's too popular and it's affecting people's careers, and it's been long enough for that to really start to happen to people. So like that doesn't tell you anything. I was hearing that back during Winter Soldier.
Yeah, 2014. That was when it was huge. 2012, 2014.
Yeah.
Huge.
And then this one is also a little bit baffling to me. I kind of get what it's getting at, but you'll see what I mean. Number 1. This is the number 1. Sequels are coming out too fast. It's become commonplace for popular Hollywood movies to earn multiple sequels in this era of blockbuster film franchises. However, too many sequels or sequels that come out too fast risk creating too much of a good thing. Okay, oversaturation, yes, but specifically sequels, no. And I'll tell you why. The real problem is that certain sequels aren't coming out fast enough because you'll set up. I mean, this makes people less interested in certain characters and franchises that they loved in the first place, right? Where you'll get like a Spider-Man Homecoming that comes out, and then all of a sudden you've had these huge event movies that change the whole landscape of the universe, and then the very beginning of your next Spider-Man film has to be affected by all of that. It's like you had 12 sequels in between those things. If only we could make some of these movies all at the same time. Then you wouldn't have that. And then Doctor Strange 2, like, things built up, or built at the end of that movie, that the next movie should build on that foundation, can't. Like, you would have had, stuff with Mordo that's not there.
Yeah, it was 6 years later we finally got back to Doctor Strange 2.
Yeah.
I don't agree with that one at all. Like, what? Spider-Man 2 came out 2 years after Spider-Man. Huge success. Like, what? That's not a new thing.
I don't know what he's talking about.
I don't get that one at all.
Yeah, that was really weird. Okay, let's get back to chat. Can we go to a pre-written, please?
Sure.
And then rest of the show, guys, we will be taking questions. I'm sorry our lead-in topic has taken this long. We have done a little bit in the way of questions, but this was a big topic. So go ahead.
Jedi Knight. This is a nice, short and sweet one. I like it. See if we can come up with an answer. The Welder. Yeah. In a perfect world, how many MCU projects should there be in 1 year?
You don't have to read The Welder, because that just means that he was trying to get your attention.
I also say good night, Judah, to my son when I tell him to, when someone tells me to say good night, Judah.
Did he say projects or movies?
That he says projects, so that's where it's going to get interesting. Like, we got to include some Disney Plus shows, we got to include movies.
Okay, so
no, I would say no more than 2 movies.
I'm okay with 3 if they're not too formulaic and if there's a lot of variety, because there's so many different pockets of the Marvel Universe now. I can see the case for 3, but they've got to be spread out through the year, and you've got to really have your quality standards very high. The TV show thing is so sticky because too many of the things they've made, I feel like, should have been movies. And so I see those and I go, well, that should have been a TV show in the first place. And like, that's a mulligan. You made a 6-hour TV show that should have been a 2-hour movie, or 4 hours, or whatever it is.
Well, isn't it interesting that the three that we like the most, I don't know about you, I know you haven't watched too much of Miss Marvel, the three I like the most.
I like what I've seen of it. I've seen half of it. I like it quite a bit.
Are the ones that feel like TV shows. WandaVision, great premise for a TV show.
Yep, absolutely.
Hawkeye, TV show. Miss Marvel, TV show.
By the end, Hawkeye does feel more like it could have been a movie, but it's more in the ballpark of TV show.
Yeah. Well, I mean, miniseries, I think, is a great premise for that premise. Like, he has a week before Christmas, and he has to. I think.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
It was a great idea for a series instead of a movie. They wrap everything up too much at the end, but see, and then the ones that should have been movies aren't good shows. Crazy. Weird how that works.
Some of it with Disney Plus is going to depend on all the other content that they have that are vying for attention from the same sort of audience. And I get that MCU is supposed to be accessible, and like a lot of people of different walks of life look at that stuff, but it just seems to me like, at least in my circles, the majority of people that would watch Marvel stuff are also kind of interested in the Star Wars stuff, and I think they have to be careful about that. If you put too much of both out, like, now you're competing with yourself. Like, Star Wars is fighting with Marvel at that point. Like, that's kind of a mistake. I don't know. I think if they were more regular TV shows, we somehow wouldn't be as concerned about it, right? Like, you know, in my lifetime, there have been shared universes on TV where you have 2 or 3 shows of the same universe on at once, and I watch all of them, and I'm really happy that I get to have that and that they can cross into each other and stuff like that. But that was a day and age where things were a little bit more episodic, and I didn't feel like I had to strain to remember what happened week to week as much. And also, it's just the internet age we live in, we're all consuming more media. That's part of the problem, too, right? Where, like, the days where you had Hercules and Xena on at the same time, or you had, like, DS9 and Voyager on at the same time, you had 2 Stargates on at the same time, it's different than now when people are also consuming podcasts and YouTube channels and, you know, a million other things. And like too much scripted. Like, I never thought I'd see the day where you had so much more scripted television than you ever had reality TV. Like, I could never have predicted that. It's crazy.
Well,
so I don't know if I can give you a number with TV. It's really hard to say. A lot of it does have to do with quality. And if they were all miniseries and we weren't hearing about so many of them they're trying to turn into multi-season shows, because I don't feel like they learned any lessons from the Netflix shows except don't make them 13 episodes. Like, I think that's the only lesson they learned from those shows.
Yeah, I was surprised that Miss Marvel's only 6 episodes.
Maybe the rule should be... Okay, let's go with what you said, just because it'll be funny to say it like this. You said 2. Let's make it the rule of 2, right? Like
2 and 2?
Like with Star Wars, with the Sith. Only 2. 2 movies, 2 TV shows, but make them all miniseries, so that you've got this variety where every year you've got, like, you know, 4 new superhero things. I guess. I still say maybe 6, but...
Yeah, it's interesting that I was going to say, it's interesting that we didn't have this same burnout thing with the Netflix shows that we're having with Disney Plus. Because at the time, we all thought those were in continuity. There was no reason to not think that they were going to forget about those. The first year, when, like, 3 or 4 came out, or, like... Yeah, I think we had Daredevil Season 1, and then we had Jessica Jones, and then we had Daredevil Season 2, like, early next year. Like, when we were thinking of them as seasons of television, we weren't getting burnout as now that we're thinking of them as miniseries.
But also, some of that is because of the Netflix model versus the Disney Plus model, because they drop them week to week. So people were watching the Netflix shows like movies. They were binging them. Like, I knew people that would kind of wait until midnight when they would drop, or whatever time they dropped, and then they would take the 12 episode, 13, whatever it is, season of Daredevil, and they would binge it all night long. And they would have enough time to rewatch it once or twice if they cared about it that much before Jessica Jones came out. There was time in between these things, and it felt like there was even more time in between them because you didn't have to wait 6 weeks, 8 weeks for them to be rolled out. That's some of it. The binge watching thing made a big difference back then.
Yeah, but I never did that. So it's weird that I'm not getting burnt out like I was back then, but it just might be time of life.
Or you mean that you are getting burnt out now in a way you weren't back
I'm not
then?
watching them all. I've only watched
good call.
Disney Plus shows, where I was watching all the Netflix shows until
They got bad.
Defenders, and then I was like, I can't do this anymore.
Did you get through Iron Fist?
Yeah, Iron Fist and then Defenders. Those two in a row just made me jump ship. Like,
I know. I mean, I kept watching it, but begrudgingly. I felt like I had a gun to my head. I never finished Jessica Jones 3. It was better than 2, but so's jumping onto a bicycle with a seat missing. Like, it's not hard.
All right. Let's see. Bob the Hun gave us a $5 super chat. He has one earlier too, but this one's about the topic. So MCU is not only played out and feels the same, its tone has infected everything.
Yeah.
Same R-word comedy and self-reference humor. We are in, wow, we are in hell. He says, good grief. He's very hyperbolic, but he's very upset with the MCU.
I think there are a lot of people that feel that way, where the sensibilities of it, because it got so popular, and of course this is going to happen because Hollywood is these movie studios obviously are trying to make money, and these are big commitments money-wise, so they're looking at what everybody else is doing and going, well, if that's the trend now, we've got to jump on it. When studios put out the biggest, most impressive moneymakers, it tends to be a huge risk they took, that's where you see something that nobody's ever tried before. But how many things do you have to make that totally bomb and nobody cares about before you get to one of those, right? So I sympathize to some degree with why that happens. I just wish that it didn't have to. I wish these things didn't have to be as risky, so that you could expect studios to take bigger risks with their properties, so they weren't just copying what other people were doing. So if you don't like MCU humor, and if you think that their movies are too, I know it's
T-shirt idea, MC Hammer parody, but it's MC humor.
MC humor. It did sound like a rapper. If you don't like MCU humor, or you think that it's all too rote, or you think that it's too least common denominator and such, and then you're seeing it everywhere else, you're not going to want to support the thing that is making that happen to the culture. So I totally understand why he feels that way. And I have to be honest with you, I do too, to some degree. Not enough that I'm not going to look at the things that I like, and that every MCU thing I am watching is begrudging, because it isn't. Like, I was excited about Doctor Strange 2, and it didn't disappoint for me. But even that, like, that was in a list of somebody's, like, here's the thing that doesn't happen very often, this movie was great, was still kind of polarizing. There's a lot of people that don't like that movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's what I said. I don't want it to be taking over all of Hollywood, but I also don't want it to go away. I just want it to be, a few things I get to watch a year, amongst other things. So hopefully we can get back to that. Hopefully we don't have to see the death of it like the Western before something else takes over. I hope something else takes over and then it just kind of recedes a little bit. That's the dream. We'll see. Super Billy, $5 super chat.
Thanks, what's up?
The contributions to superhero fatigue, I feel, are as follows.
Okay.
Oversaturation generally, Marvel effectively monopolizing the genre.
I don't know about monopolizing it, because, like, I mean, sorry, let me just say this real quick. There's so much more Marvel than there is anything else, but I wouldn't agree that just because Marvel, it's not a monopoly in the sense that just because Marvel, it makes so many superhero things, people don't pay attention to any of the other superhero things, particularly with television. Like, a lot of people's favorite superhero stuff on TV has nothing to do with Marvel. And you could make the argument that Marvel increased a lot of people's interest in superhero in the first place, which opened the door for DC and Amazon and other companies to bring in these kind of no-name or little-known superheroes, adapting comics that people didn't know about, and when they're good, people tend to notice them, and they get looked at. I'm not sure things like Invincible or The Boys or Peacemaker on television, things like that, would have been possible without the success of the MCU. But so like I think DC dug their own grave, right? Like, it's not like BVS didn't make the money that Warner's expected it to just because Marvel got to everything first. It was because people didn't like it.
It's because Snyder was trying to make DC the anti-Marvel.
Yeah. And I didn't want to see them do exactly the same thing that Marvel did, and if it was a clone, that might have been something of a problem. But those characters were going to make money no matter what you did with that movie. We saw it happen. It didn't do what it was supposed to, but it still made quite a bit of money because it was, again, making history.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, what else does he have on that? Sorry, I don't mean to just berate him with that. I just don't know that. I see where he's coming from, but I don't think I agree with it.
Yeah, and then the second, his number 2 is continuity. MCU formula growing stale, lack of artistic diversity, qualitative inconsistency, and introducing something as big as the multiverse too early.
And again, we don't want to be contradictory. When there is artistic diversity, people are resisting it. So, like, there's few and far... That stuff is few and far between, but whenever it is being tried, people aren't liking that, because...
Yeah, it's hard to blame them at this point.
At the same time as as people were, like, conditioned, this is what Marvel movies look like, and were, like, kind of begging for things to push envelopes and try different things and take some risks, then that happens, and it's not what they're used to. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Those same people also got conditioned, but sometimes it's also like I want to give people
and that's
the
always
benefit of the doubt. Sometimes it's also because just the movie's not that great to people. Like, I like Eternals. Eternals has got a lot of problems, and there are deal breakers for that movie that for people that weren't deal breakers for me. But it's got some big logic issues and stuff. Like, I don't know that a lot of people that don't care for that movie, that the problem is it's not Marvel enough. It's they just weren't won over on those characters, and the premise was really hokey and really convoluted for people, right? Like what was the issue with Eternals? Well, there's nobody I recognize. Was that the problem? It wasn't the problem with Guardians. And that was all the way in 2014.
Not recognize, but not people I recognize, but a tone that I recognize, like a feel. Like, it doesn't feel like a Marvel movie. And that's always been the case, because you go back to Iron Man 3, which feels really refreshing. What felt really refreshing to me, it's like this little spy espionage thing where Tony Stark's like wandering around in the snow for like the whole middle part of the movie. It doesn't feel like this big superhero thing after Avengers, and then a lot of people didn't like that one.
Well, maybe I'm wrong about this. Maybe I'm thinking that the same people complaining that it's the same, that too many of those movies are the same, are also the same people complaining that Eternals was too different. Maybe those are two different camps. Maybe it's because a lot of this is pretty splintered. Maybe the people complaining about that are the people that want it to have that safe feel and like every Marvel movie until they try something too different. Like, I don't think everybody is as in love with Winter Soldier as I am. You know, like, a lot of people really like that movie, but like the people that and I don't mean to put too many people in a box. Everybody's different, but I imagine that most people that, again, you know, loved Thor Ragnarok, Winter Soldier is probably not like their second favorite Marvel movie.
Oh yeah, I mean, me personally, I respect Winter Soldier. I think it's a really, really well-made movie. Every single time I watch it, like 20 minutes after it's over, it all falls out of my head. Like, I can't
interesting.
Remember, it's like so not my thing. I'm just not a spy guy at all.
I'm not either. That's one of those things that wins me over on a genre while I'm watching it. But the other thing too is I watch things very differently when I'm putting a review together, as I talked about a lot with the Lone Ranger review last night, than I do just casually, right? So, when I saw Winter Soldier the first time, I wasn't sure how I felt about it. Like, it's I think, maybe the best MCU movie. Some of my favorite movies are things that I didn't know what to do with when I first saw them. And I had to write about that movie before I went, oh, this is brilliant, you know?
Yeah, Winter Soldier is a movie that I really love while I'm watching it, but I never think to watch it. Like, that's not one that I go to. But obviously, it's a great movie.
Yeah, I do have an ambiance thing with that now that I really enjoy, but yeah. Okay, I'm seeing lots and lots of super chats. Can we do one more pre-written real quick?
Yes, let me do his. He had a third part to his. Super Billy had one more part to his, and then
I'm sorry, I'm talking all over his super chat.
No worries. No, it was 3 different. He broke it up, so it's his fault. He said.
Thanks for the super chats, man.
Investment will likely flatline as a result of all the things that he just listed that we talked about.
Yeah, I agree with that, with the points that I agreed with. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we will see what the populace turns to. Let me see. Smarty Pants tutoring.
Yeah.
Uh, Cap, if there is superhero fatigue, what would be the best way for Marvel and DC to avoid it outside of oversaturation? I guess we kind of talked about that a lot.
Yeah, I mean that is the big thing, certainly.
Outside of that,
Don't make your movies too close to each other, too much the same. Try some different things. Like I think
don't rush them out. Like allow the people enough time to finish them.
yeah, you know what, you're right. That's the biggest thing. Don't have the attitude of strike while the iron's hot. You know,
Yeah, why have they had
trust
that
in your
attitude
properties. It's been so long. You don't need to have that
16
attitude.
years, you don't need to have that attitude anymore.
Yeah. That's the biggest thing, right? Is don't treat it like a fad, treat it like a genre. Assume superhero as a genre lasts forever, and don't make any assumptions about how popular it stays, because you can't do anything about that anyway.
Yeah, and I'm not naive. I know all studios have deadlines. Like
You know what will
deadline...
exist forever? The comic book movie. Movies based on comics.
Yeah. Adaptations of all mediums will always exist. But I'm not stupid. Like I know that you have to set deadlines for movies, and that's what. But you don't have to have 3 or 4 movies come out every year. Like that's what I'm talking about. Like setting out yourself up all the way to Phase 6 now. With all these movies are coming out. Like, and I know they can cancel them sometimes, like they did with Inhumans, but they don't want to. Like they're setting themselves up to have to rush these things out and get them done so quickly and give the VFX like post-production is like 6 months on these movies. Like they're just cranking them out.
Let me also suggest surprise people and make them events that way. What happened to viral marketing? Why do we have to do? Why do we have to be so high profile about all of this stuff? And you could say, well, we're in an internet age, especially these days. Things are going to become high profile anyway because jokers like me are making videos about them. But I still think that there's something to say for the first class strategy. If people seem tired of a thing, lay off of it for a couple of years, come back, and then don't make a big deal out of it, and then see if anybody goes and sees it. Because first class was like, for a lot of people, of course, I knew that movie was happening, but we didn't know a lot.
It was a surprise hit for a lot of people, yeah.
Yeah, and it was a sleeper hit. Like they didn't merchandise it, or they didn't.
All we had was that picture of all of them just in like normal clothes, looking.
They didn't advertise it
real
hard.
Mansion. Like I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
This is the 50s. They all have like modern haircuts. It was weird. That was all we had was that one photo. I don't know if you remember that.
I do.
It's all of the team and like Professor X and Magneto, who I didn't even know who it was at the time because they just all look like the same age. And they're all just standing there. I'm like, this is such a weird image to be the first image for your X-Men movie.
Yeah, and you go, well, I have to know. I'm so curious. And that was a franchise that had ended so poorly, or at least the last couple of movies they had, people didn't like. That like whatever they put out next, if it looked really different, you'd be like, well, maybe they figured something out, and you'd be kind of curious about it. So the timeline thing, maybe don't tell us everything you're going to make for the next 10 years.
Yeah, and Daniel Davis brings up a good point. Everything gets spoiled now. Yeah, but you're spoiling it yourself now. It's like they're trying to get ahead of it, and we're just going to tell you everything so nothing will get leaked. But like, I don't know. Not everybody looks at leaks. Not everyone's keeping up with that stuff. Just if it happens, it happens. But you don't have to tell us everything.
I agree. Yeah, great point. Okay, I think we have lots of super chats. I'm going to try to go as lickety split as possible because I really need to not be 2 hours tonight. I kind of need to. My wife's out of town, and I'm going to need to go get my kids in bed in not too long from now. So I'm going to have to rush things a little bit now. So
right.
let's try to blow through things. How many super chats do we have?
About 10.
Okay. I tell you what. If I hate to do this. Let me take a quick break, and I'm just going to run upstairs real quick and say something to my children, and then I'll come back and we'll finish the show.
Sounds good.
Okay, everybody give me like 2 minutes. I'll be right back. And DJ, do you want to take a break too? Because I'm totally cool with you just chatting with the viewers and keeping the show going if you want to.
Sure, I can do that if you guys want to talk.
Everybody have fun talking to DJ, and Let me just put him front and center.
Oh wow!
Here.
Look at there I am. My whole image is in the shot. Wow.
There he is. Yeah. Okay, guys. I'll be right back.
All right, guys. What's up? Let me drink some water because I'm losing my voice. Thank you so much for coming to the Tuesday show. We've had a lot of fun with this. We were worried bringing it back if there was going to be enough interest, but you guys are definitely showing up. Lots of interest. John Ty says last call for super chats. Hopefully. Who knows, though? Who knows? AMC Comics, X-Men First Class, and Days of Future Past are the best X-Men movies for me, full stop. I agree with you on the first one. I love First Class. It's my favorite X-Men movie. Utale, DJ, have you watched Sandman? I haven't. Is that out? How much of it is out? How much of it is out? Because I'm very interested in that. I have not seen as much Neil Gaiman or read as much Neil Gaiman as I would like. But I didn't know that show dropped. That's interesting. Speaking of Neil Gaiman, is anyone watching the American Gods show? Because I read that book, but the show did not look very enticing to me. So I didn't check it out. But if anyone's seen it, let me know if it's good. Captain Dad has work to do. This busted sim, that's part of having children, and he has 5 of them. So he has got his hands full. Senior Sticks, what kind of water is that? This is water from my fridge in my nice Camelback water bottle. So whatever filtered water comes out of my fridge, sir. I do not know if it's distilled or just plain old tap. Oh, Philip Kelton with another super chat. Thank you. I will report to the boss as soon as he gets back. TH1, I bought a pin and a mug already. Thank you so much, sir. We just launched the show. If you've come in late, we've launched the merch shop, and TH1 is one of our first customers. Which mug and which pin did you buy, Tom? No, Darth Bobo. I am not actually a DJ. Just a birth name. All episodes are out of Sandman. Wow, Mitali, that's interesting. I got to check that out. How many episodes is it? Is it like just an 8-episode miniseries? To watch that with the wife. No, I will not play Jason David Frank in the life story of Jason David Frank. Senior Sticks. That would be torture. Chewbacca's lover. Am I crazy? People in their 20s and 30s went to blockbuster movies and were excited for them. Adults liked Matrix and Jurassic Park. No, you're not crazy. A lot of people like Matrix and Jurassic Park.
Yes, you're insane, but not for that reason. No, I'm kidding. I'm sorry, what was the question?
Senior Sticks asked me if I would play Jason David Frank in a life story of Jason David Frank.
I could see it.
No, that would be horrible.
The irony is you wouldn't do it for the same reason that he won't come back for the opposite reason that he won't come back for Power Rangers. He was quoted recently saying that he didn't want to do any 30th anniversary thing because, quote, he's given enough to the franchise, he's done enough for the franchise, and he doesn't want to have to cover his tattoos. And you wouldn't play him because you wouldn't want to have to get all of his tattoos drawn on you.
Oh, every day? That'd be like 3 hours of makeup, hair, makeup.
Absolutely would, yeah, because he's got them all the way up on his hands and stuff at this point.
Yeah.
I'm never going that far, by the by.
Oh, well, that was fun. That was really cool. I learned that all of Sandman is out, and I need to check that out.
It is, yeah, because Netflix still has that model for most things, where they drop everything all at once, and I'm curious about that as well. If I can find the time here in the next week or two, I will at least do a how we felt about all the pilot, or like the first couple episodes. I'm working on some other stuff, so I don't think I'm going to be able to like watch all of it in 2 weeks and then do a video like I used to with stuff, but I don't know. I'm not sure yet, but I want to do something on that because I'm really curious about it. That's another one of those things, though, that I wish I had time to read some of the source material first because I've never read Sandman. It's a huge blind spot for me.
Me too. Any game and stuff, really, except for American Gods, which also has a show that I have not watched, and I was talking to these guys about it.
Yeah.
But all right, I'm just going to go all the way back to the top, and we're just going to go straight through the super chats.
Let's do it.
First one is from Bob the Hun, $2. Thoughts on Taika Waititi's asinine comments?
Oh, he had some asinine comments? Which asinine comments are we referring to? I'm not sure what he's talking about.
I'm not sure either, Bob the Hun. If you're still here, let us know. Or if anyone in the chat
I like that
knows.
word choice, so I had to keep saying it.
Asinine comments.
Busted Sim, I'm not doing facial tattoos.
Anybody know what he's talking about?
Nicholas
we'll move
Montez.
on, but
Did you hear the news about Lil Pump's Powerpuff Girls tattoo? No. No, I'll have to look into that. I didn't know that person had a Powerpuff Girls tattoo. Anyway, yeah, I don't.
If anyone mentions in the chat, I'll bring it back up in a minute. But yeah, we don't know what you're talking about. We could talk about his asinine films, but we can't talk about his asinine comments.
Oh, Mutale, I think he's saying he didn't know Hercules was a Marvel character. Look, I'm not surprised by anything Watiti says about comics that he doesn't know about, or even like genre movies and stuff at large. And I'm not even giving the man crap. Marvel Studios chose to have him direct the movie. It's on them that they picked a guy that doesn't care about the source material. It really is. Like, I blame Marvel a lot more for what went wrong with those Thor movies than I do the director. That's what he likes to make. They hired him and they let him make movies. At least they let him do his thing and make movies. I just don't like that that's who they picked for that. Like, that was the big mistake in my mind. Another quote.
Yeah, we don't get the Edgar Wright Ant-Man movie, but we get the
Taika Waititi Thor, a man that's read one Thor comic in his life and went. I heard him say this. I guess I do know some of what you're talking about now that you're mentioning it. I guess I have heard some things where he goes
saying the source material doesn't matter and saying he never read a Thor comic, stuff like that.
Well, and he said, like, I read one, but I didn't like the way everybody talked, so I couldn't deal with it. I couldn't read anymore.
But we have to listen to your Kiwi accent come out of a rock monster for 2 hours.
He also famously, a little while ago, before these comments that they're talking about, I think, asked Natalie Portman how she would feel about being in a Star Wars movie, and she had to remind him that she's been in 3. And I was surprised that didn't come up in comments in Captain Logan shows prior, but I think that was, that might have happened the month that I took off, yeah.
Why do directors get a pass? Like, if I were to go to a new job and make a complete fool of myself and not know anything about what the company has done, I would be not given the job or I'd be fired. Like, why did they not? Oh, he's a director. He doesn't have to look at everything. Yes, he does. He's working for the company. Like, learn something about what they've done.
At least he's involved in franchises, so he should probably know something about those franchises. If he's just making his own movie that has nothing to do with anything, but working for that company, I wouldn't expect him to know anything about Star Wars and Marvel. But he's making stuff for Star Wars and Marvel. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's what he was talking about. He was talking about those comments. So I'm glad we got that.
But again, I also just think it's weird that they hired him. Like, you'd think that it means it's not a prerequisite that you look at anything. You know what I mean? And so I think it's weird policy on their part than anything. And that's not saying that people haven't come in. I don't know. I kind of have two brains about this. It's not to say that directors haven't come in on projects that they didn't care anything about and didn't turn in great work. But
yeah,
if you're a really good storyteller and you can tell a story that's so far removed from continuity, you can fake it, you can cheat. More of what I'm impressed with is when somebody comes in like Nicholas Meyer with Star Trek, with Wrath of Khan, who didn't care at all about Star Trek, had never really seen it, but went, well, I've chosen to take this job, so I'm going to learn the canon. Like, I feel like I need to understand this world if I'm going to take this job. So that's what he did, and then he gave us something really authentic, but he also changed the mood and the feel of it, so it still fits well within continuity, but he made it his own, and that's how you do that.
Yeah, it's only going to help you. I mean, looking at Thor comics is not going to hurt you, even if you don't.
It is if you can't stand the way the language is spoken, I guess.
I can't even have a conversation with you if you can't read something because it's in a different. Does he watch movies that are in different languages? Like, what are you talking about? Anyway, Thomas Low 86. It will be great if you do a shirt signed. Oh, yeah. You're going to sign the shirt tonight?
Oh, well.
I guess you'll have to ask the person if they want it or not.
Well, that's tricky because my plan was to just get the shirt from the store and then get your address and ship it to you as opposed to getting it shipped here first. Yeah. I don't have them on hand, so that would be more complicated and would cost more than I probably want to deal with for a giveaway. I don't mean to be cheap, but that wasn't my plan. Maybe at some point I'll do that, where like I'll buy some shirts and have them on hand and then offer to ship people. But sorry, you blindsided me with that. I'm not going to gonna do that for this, but maybe at some point. And also, I don't have the right markers on hand and stuff. Like it would take me a bit to figure out how to get a shirt signed that wouldn't come out in the wash. I've never done this, so
You have to do some research. But yeah, Thomas Lowe, that's a good idea.
And also, why do you want my signature? It's not gonna be worth anything. And I don't know how to sign things. I mean,
he's got to practice this signature.
I know how to sign things. I have signed Captain Logan before, but I feel weird about it. Where it's like I have a real name, but like Captain Logan's what I go by on the channel. So like, do I sign it Captain Logan? And then I want to come up with like a really cool like Captain Logan signature finally, if I'm gonna sign that way. Otherwise, it's just my real name.
Yeah.
You see, I actually signed my the way I signed my real name up in the air, like that's how I sign. But Captain Logan would be like like a big L, Logan. Anyway.
And then all of Logan is sitting on top of the L like a shelf. Yeah.
I'd probably just do a CL. That's how I sign like emails and stuff. It'd probably just be initials. It'd just be a CL.
Yeah. The more famous you get, the less letters you actually have to write.
Which means I better write all of them.
But good idea, Thomas Lowe. Checkers the Inventor, $2. Is the White Castle Renaissance over?
No, it's just beginning. And coincidentally, Marvel is helping us make that happen.
Thank you. Oh yeah, that'll be a big boost in the White Castle Renaissance when that show comes out. Logan Dodd, $4.99.
I'm trying not to announce things. I'm gonna do something else with White Castle, I think.
Ooh.
I think.
Well, you still have to do it with somebody, because that's the whole thing. Like the White Castle movies is Harold and Kumar go to White Castle. So like you and me have to go to White Castle, or you and Austin have to go to a White Castle or something.
Yeah. Harold and Kumar.
Road trip. I'd love to do a road trip. I've never done that.
I saw a Neil Patrick Harris video today where he was talking about Harold and Kumar go to White Castle, and I didn't realize that he was in that movie. He plays himself apparently. I didn't know that.
Because that's the Christmas one, right? That he's in. I've never seen any of those movies, but I've seen the cover a lot, and he's on the front. Anyway, Logan Dodd, $4.99. What would you say to Affleck or Favreau being the Kevin Feige of DC films?
Oh, I thought you meant what would I say to them specifically? Run for the hills! So you said Affleck or who?
Favreau.
Why Affleck? Well, I guess I could see that because
He's a director.
I've never seen his movies. Yeah, I think that would be poetic justice.
I thought you watched Argo. Did you not watch Argo?
I've still never seen that. I need to do that. Don't you think it would be poetic justice if Ben Affleck became the Kevin Feige of DC after what happened with Batman and how depressed he got about all of that? And that would be nuts. I haven't seen his movies. So, I mean, I've seen movies with Ben Affleck in them, but I haven't seen his directed in really many movies he's written. So, I'm not sure what it would look like if he took over a superhero franchise. I don't feel like he's necessarily right for it just because of the kinds of movies he makes. It's really hard to say. I feel like he'd get burnt out real quick. Like, I feel like he would maybe go too far in the direction of trying to make them not comic booky and superhero enough. Like they might be too real worldy under his pen. Like they'd probably be smart movies and like real character driven, which is what I want. But they might not be mythic enough for a like overall DC collective universe. I mean, I'm sure they'd be better than Snyder's movies. I'd take him over Snyder, but I'd take you over Snyder. Like.
And I would just have pictures of movies on a shelf. That's the whole film. Just be shots of movies on shelves. No, I don't think...
DJ's way of making movies is literally shooting movies?
I don't think an actor is the right choice. Across the board, I don't think an actor is a good... because if they still want to act, like, you can't do anything else and be a Feige. Like, Feige's so busy all the time.
No, but I don't mind the idea of Affleck stops acting to do it.
Oh, yeah, if he wants to stop acting. I don't know if he wants to at this point, but yeah.
Or at least not in those movies. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't want him to be show running it and playing Batman, but if he's not in them, that might be okay.
Yeah. I'm just thinking of, like, trying to balance his schedule with actually still acting in other things and running an entire universe. Did you see someone in the Discord posted an article?
Sorry, real quick. Who was the other person, though?
Favreau.
I mean, Favreau's not going to leave Star Wars, but, like, his Star Wars has been kind of a mixed bag, and... Maybe he's... And also, I have that thing, right, where I don't really want to see, like, one of the big heads of Marvel go over and try to like do the same magic at DC. Like I would want new blood for that. So like I really like a lot of the things that Favreau did for I say a lot of. I mean, I like his first Iron Man movie a lot, and I like him as an actor in those movies. And Iron Man 2 was not great, but like, you know, he got the whole thing started, and I kind of wish we still made those movies a little bit more like the way he made them. If I'll say this, if Feige stepped down and Favreau took over for Feige for MCU, that seems like a lateral move that makes sense to me, but not DC. I don't think I'd want that.
Yeah, and he's got such a good relationship with Disney because he did Jungle Book and then he went on to do Lion King and he's doing Star Wars. Like he's in all their stuff already, so that makes sense.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, when we saw what happened in different circumstances, probably, but we saw what happened when Whedon went from one place to the other place. Like I don't know if we want to keep doing that, but you know,
well, Gunn did it. He did.
That's true. That's true. He did. Yeah, I shouldn't have brought that up.
Hey, we're verbal processors. We gotta talk it out. We gotta talk it out.
We really are. I mean, I really think I should just change the name of the show to Wasting Your Time Live.
Change it to, why did you say it in the first place, DJ, before I went on this whole spiel?
Do you think more people would watch a show instead of the Captain Logan show? Do it exactly the same font with a logo that looks exactly the same. Wasting Your Time Live.
That's actually hilarious. I'll get right on it. It'll be the next t-shirt.
That would be a good t-shirt. We're going to have all these inside jokes. People are going to get t-shirts. People pass them on the street. What the heck does that mean?
Well, you
Doesn't
already
matter.
have
It's hilarious.
Waste Your Time Volution, which you've said before.
Oh, yeah.
Or someone else said that in a comment. That would be a horrible shirt. It would go like around the back.
I don't think TeePublic will let you do that.
You can do either back or front or both, but you can't do a different design on the front and back, which is a bummer.
So you can't do a wraparound?
No, I don't think you can do that.
It'd be cool if you could do a wraparound.
I wanted to do like Edible State's title on the front, or Frybox on the front, and then title on the back, but it's only one design that goes in both places, which is kind of a bummer.
Oh, that is unfortunate. That's all right. We won't hold it against them. They seem like a lovely company.
No, they're great. Roger Lee, $10 super chat. Top Gun Maverick continues to be this year's biggest phenomenon. It
beat Titanic.
It made another 7 million in its 11th week of release, about to pass Infinity War as number 6 on all-time domestic box office. It's still the number 1 of this movie, above Doctor Strange. It was in the top 5 for like 11 weeks. Like, it's crazy.
It is climbing the box office like it's 1999. When was the last time you saw a movie that couldn't be released on video for 3 months because it stayed in the movie theater?
It stayed in the top 5.
Yeah.
Of all movies. It's crazy.
Did it leave and come back? No, I guess if it was 11th week, it's just stayed in that long. Ryan?
Yeah, I don't know if it's stayed in or if it's just been in there in the top 5 for. I don't know, but whatever, it's crushing.
Yeah, it beat Titanic. It's this. What he said it. What was it? I read the article. I read an article about this. What was it? 7th highest grossing movie of all time.
Yeah, it's on its way to. He says it's about to pass Infinity War as number 6 on all-time domestic box office.
That's and I still haven't seen it. I will review that when it comes out on video. And I know people keep saying I need to go see that in the theater.
And you still can, because it's still in the theater.
Isn't that nuts? But I don't want to go without my wife.
Your daughters are going to be like 5 by the time it leaves the theater, so it'll be fine.
He's like, you've got time. You can. You know what? Jason is getting. The girls are getting big enough, and Jason's getting really good at babysitting. And we might be able to get away with letting him watch them for 2 hours at this point. It's possible. I don't know. I've never gone that long. Today I had to take one of my other sons, Freddie, to karate, and I had to stay with him there. And Jason watched the girls for an hour, and he did just fine. So I might be able to get away with it. I don't know. But anyway, do another pre-written if you've got one.
I've got them right here. Let me see. Mutale at the Welder and Cap. Do you find it weird people are complaining about Phase 4 being aimless? When before, people complaining was the focus too much on setting up the next thing and being interconnected.
Yeah, that's another thing I have kind of different brains about. Like, I can see both sides to that argument. How do you feel about that whole thing?
That's another thing like we were talking about earlier where it's like, well, are these the same exact people? Like,
yeah, sure.
Like, there's no way to know unless you're literally talking to the same
well, you
person.
can't complain about this if you're complaining about this. Like, But yeah, you're right. Like there was a lot of. I mean, even going all the way back to like Iron Man 2, I remember doing that review with Vince, and Vince complaining that too much of that movie felt like it was just like setting up for Avengers.
Commercial for Avengers,
which feels really quaint now when you go back and look at that movie, and you know how much of that we do later, and now the idea that it's aimless. But the reason I do agree a little bit with the idea of it seeming aimless is, again, I don't need and don't want every Marvel thing to all be about continuity and interconnectedness, and it's all just headed toward the next big event, be it, Secret Wars or whatever big, new multiverse thing that we're going toward, or Secret Invasion, or the next Avengers movies, or Quantumania, or whatever it is. But it would be nice to have a sense of which things I need to look at so that I can watch those event things if I decide to skip anything. And I think I think the bigger issue is just how much is coming out before it's what the direction is. And I think sometimes when people complain about certain things, what they're articulating might not be entirely what the real problem is for them. So I don't know for sure. Maybe what a lot of people want is everything to feel like it's just moving toward one thing and it's all one big franchise. If you're going to put this much material out, it can't be that way. And it probably shouldn't be that way because a lot of us would like to see things of different tones and that are trying different things. So I think some people might be saying that, but what they're really feeling is there's too much and they don't know if they need to look at all of it. Or they want to watch all of it. And the consolation prize, if you don't like the thing you're watching, is, well, at least it mattered. Right? Yeah. Don't you think that's the biggest thing? Is like you finish a show and you didn't like the ending or you didn't really enjoy the whole experience, but if you didn't see it, you wouldn't know what was happening in the next thing, so at least you didn't feel like your time was wasted?
Yeah. Although, I don't know if Dark World fits either of those. I think it also didn't really matter.
Well, some of their movies didn't matter, but there were few enough of them that, like I said earlier, all those years ago now, that even if things didn't matter, there weren't so many of them. It wasn't throwing so many movies and shows at you all at once, and the TV shows didn't matter at that point.
Yeah, because Ant-Man's didn't matter.
And stuff. Yeah,
but people enjoyed those.
But also, people by and large feel like the quality was more at a place back then. We can agree to disagree on that with folks, because some of those movies, I agree with the commenter whose name I couldn't find, are not the best, and like Thor: The Dark World is not up to snuff with some of those other movies. And even going all the way back to Phase 1, like Roger Ebert gave Thor a horrible review. He didn't think the quality of that movie was anywhere near Iron Man.
It's so interesting, right? Because we just talked about all the movies that feel different, like Iron Man 3 that people didn't like, but Ant-Man was completely different, and people thought it was refreshing. It feels so random.
Busted
what audiences like.
Sorry, I was talking about Jason watching the girls for 2 hours. Busted Sim says,
yeah.
Cap comes home to the house both on fire and flooded somehow. It's pretty good. Anyway, I was distracted by that.
Don't let your family get hurt just to see Top Gun.
No, of course not. Of course not. I can't decide if that would be an irresponsible move or not, but I don't know. We announce everything on this show, don't we? We talk like we have our business meetings and our personal meetings. Maybe if we quit doing that, more people that haven't subscribed to the channel would want to watch us. I don't know. Anyway, how many more super chats do we have?
We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay, that's not bad. We've got 7 minutes before the 2-hour mark, and I know I was trying real hard to get out earlier, but I was able to get the kids to bed and stuff, so it's not as big of a deal going to 2, but we're not going to go too far past that. So, and I still have not seen the elusive like awesome question of the evening yet. Like there have been a lot of really good, thoughtful questions, and I can go back through some of the ones that we had and pick out of those. But I haven't had anything yet that's just slapped me in the face. Is this guy's getting a T-shirt? So.
All right, guys, step it up. Step it up the questions.
That's not what I mean. The questions have been great.
Roger Lee, $10 super chat. Cap.
Yes.
How caught up are you on the Orville? This season of New Horizons is my favorite season of TV or streaming in at least the past decade. McFarlane should stick to writing and creating sci-fi.
Yeah, everybody's talking about how great that is. We talked about this on Thursday. I have not seen any more since then, so I'm in the same place I was before. I've seen like 3 episodes and have not had a chance to watch any more past that. I will get to it eventually, and I'm loving it. I just have some other things that I'm wanting to review that I'm watching right now, and I will try to do that in the not too distant future. But anyway, moving right along.
All right.
I'm also bummed that it may be forever before we get another season, or we may never get another season, because McFarlane is prioritizing other things right now. So, and everybody's out of their contracts, so when he does try to put it back together, it's going to be pulling teeth to get the whole cast back together. So, I don't know that we'll ever see a season 4, but.
All right, we got one from Chewbacca's Lover for $10. He says, I don't think it's just me. Adults used to be able to get excited for blockbusters as well as the kids.
Yeah.
My dad was an adult when Matrix and Jurassic Park came out, and he got to be blown away by them.
Yeah, well, and those were original movies that weren't connected to any pre-existing franchises.
And he says, I'm still in my 20s. I'm not even 30.
Yeah. No, it is definitely different somehow. And I think he's speaking to what you were talking about earlier, DJ, where you're like, did I just get older and change? No, I don't think so. Like the movies are not made the way they were before. And in certain cases for better or worse. Like that's not to say that MCU was always perfect and now they've really, screwed the pooch and it's completely, like back asswards at this point,
Yeah.
But it is different, and it might not. Some of us, different generations are different, and technology is changing constantly, and it's changing us as people constantly. And I mean us as a people constantly. Kids growing up now are growing up with a very different technological and social landscape than I grew up in and than you grew up in, DJ. And yours was even a little bit different from mine, being as much younger than me as you are. We're close to the same generation, but we've got some years between us. You probably barely remember a time without the internet, I would imagine.
Yeah, probably. We had like a crappy computer in my grandma's house when I was pretty young that had like very, very like introductory internet stuff, but yeah.
So like, yeah, a little different, but I'm just saying that like things are always going to be aimed at the younger generation or a lot of things anyway, to some degree. And then, some things are just more accessible to everybody than others. And the MCU being a superhero thing was always kind of aimed at people in their teens and early 20s. And that part of it hasn't changed. So by definition, the way the movies feel would have to change if it's constantly aimed at that group, because that group changes, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and I think that's just constant. Like,
is that crazy talk? I think that's happening.
It's always changing. Yeah, and I think that's evidenced by the fact that Gen Z is the one that's the most interested right now, according to that study that they did.
Yeah, and it seems
being
like
made for them.
Well, and think about it. Like, that's been MCU's strategy, and for at least that generation, it's working. The comics tried it too, and that didn't work at all.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was not the generation that was reading comic books, by and large. Yeah, synergy is not always everything.
I think what he's kind of trying to get at, but blockbusters have just changed like what they are at this point.
That's true too.
Like they're more rides now, so it's not like specifically a superhero thing.
But
even
we
though
were
that's
complaining
a big
about
part of it.
But everything's relative. A lot of the big mainstream critics were complaining about that in the 90s. Jurassic Park's too much of a ride. It's not character driven enough. The characters are too two-dimensional. The Matrix is not as mind-bendy to people that have like done more reading than kids. And you know, the characters are too archetypal. Like, we heard this stuff back then, too. It's just everything's relative.
Yeah. I don't think, he picked 2 blockbusters that were popular in the 90s. Like, I could pick 2 blockbusters in the 2010s that were popular. Like, it's just, I think it's just a feeling thing. And what franchises are important to you and stuff. But yeah. I'm sorry it's not for you, man. That's a bummer.
But some of it I feel like it's not for me either, you know? So, like, I feel the same way he does to some degree with certain of them. And you also got to remember that even though we complain that too many MCU projects feel samey, some of them are directed by older directors, like Doctor Strange 2 with Sam Raimi. And so even though I'm not a big horror guy, that feels refreshing to me because it feels more like the way we used to make these things to some degree. You know what I mean? And then you get movies made by younger directors. And I don't want to name any name. Well, I guess Waititi. I don't know how old he is. Yeah, I'm not gonna get in the weeds with all of that because I'll get into stuff that I'm ignorant on. But anyway, what else do we have?
I will fact check Waititi's age. I'm on it. All right. Philip Kelton, 50 Mexican pesos. Snyder is not at fault. He is not a great director, but every director version of his film did better than the theatrical cut.
Well, yeah, but they wouldn't have necessarily made the kind of money that the studio wanted if that had been what released in the theater. And I don't think that direction was going to be sustainable in the long term. But I mean, again, we can agree to disagree. And that's another thing where I blame Snyder less than I blame the studio that decided to give him the keys to the kingdom. Like, in the same way that it's weird that Marvel said, let's give Thor to Waititi. Like, we don't get this character. Let's give it to somebody that also doesn't get this character. And then, you know, you want somebody when you're starting a shared universe with something like DC Heroes to make the definitive version that keeps, even if it's modernized, keeps the kind of classic spirit of them at the core. That's how it's going to be sustainable. You got to trust in the original material. I really believe this, and that worked for Marvel, and DC did not do that. And I think they were trying to be I think you're exactly right. I think part of the reason they went to Snyder was they were trying to be the antithesis to Marvel, and you can be the antithesis to them in the same way that DC in comics already is. Like, they're different things, at least at the core originally. You know, just do that. Yeah. But that's my opinion. But yeah.
Taika Waititi is 46. He'll be 47 on August 16th. So
okay.
5 days or 7 days.
And also, when he says the Snyder versions did better, keep in mind we had news recently about how not great the Snyder cut of Justice League did on HBO Max versus a bunch of other newer movies that were put on that service.
Yeah, we'll never know if they would have done better because they were released on physical media and streaming services. We don't have exact comparisons. Obviously,
I think a lot of people like critically, yeah. But that's also in relation to the lesser versions of them. That doesn't necessarily tell you anything. Like, now that I've got, you know, other versions to compare them to, but if that had just, and I don't know that it would have been 4 hours. It would have been a different movie. We've been
that would have not been ever released in theaters.
But say, for the sake of argument, let's say it was. Even if it does better at the box office, like, how much better does it do, and how much, you know? Well, again, like you said, we'll never know.
And they can only show it as half. They can only get half the showings in.
That's true too. But it's not going... I just think some people assume that if Snyder had just been allowed to keep going in the direction he was going after BVS, he would have somehow blown, like, Avengers out of the water or something, or done just as well. And BVS was really polarizing. When you start... And Man of Steel was very polarizing. When you start with that polarizing of a place where you've split your audience, it's not sustainable. Even if you love it, there's too many other people that don't. And with just all the crazy ideas that he had of things he was going to do later, making everything about like characters dying and I don't know. I don't want to get into the weeds with all that again, but anyway.
He's done like a 6-hour superhero rewind on BBS.
Yeah, I'm still not okay. I'll make it. I'll be all right.
Philip Kelton. Warren, I think he means Warner. Warner Brothers created their own failure by wanting too much and not even trusting the people they hire.
I'm sorry. Who is that?
Philip Kelton. It says
Okay.
Warner Brothers created their own failure by wanting too much and not even trusting the people they hire. Well, that's what happens when you give your budget when you have a movie that's like $400 million budget. Like, stakes are so high, everyone's getting involved to make sure it works.
Yeah. Okay, moving right along.
All right. Goofster123, $5. At what point does Marvel do a decades later sequel, a la Afterlife, in continuity and confuse everybody, killing the MCU in the process?
I
think it should be with Ant-Man, and since he was in Afterlife, just do it again with Paul Rudd.
That's really funny. Yeah. Well, the decades later sequel, the way we talk about that is usually like, here's a franchise that's been to bed, that's been dormant for years or decades, and we never thought we would see something else in it. Now we're reviving that franchise. If you did it in a Marvel Cinematic Universe that never stops, no matter what it is, it wouldn't really feel like a decades later sequel because of the way, DJ, we keep talking about the MCU as a franchise in and of itself, right? So like, even if you, I don't know what it would be. Let's say, well, now I'm thinking about it, it still could feel that way. Let's say we never make another Eternals, this would never happen, we never make another Eternals movie, and then 20 years later, all those actors come back and do a reunion movie. Like, it would feel like a decades later sequel, but a little bit less so because it would be in a, if the MCU is still trucking at that point, it would feel like it would be a world that we have continued to live in, that those characters we now just get to see where they've been and what they've been doing, right? Like, it still wouldn't feel as much like a decades later sequel because it wouldn't be, oh, what does the world look like now? It would just be, well, here's this world that we're already familiar with, that we've been dealing with for all this time, but now these guys are back.
Yeah, well, I think it would be like if we did, we can't because he's dead, spoiler alert, but like if we did an Iron Man in like 10 years from now, like if Downey came back and played Iron Man again. I guess the only one you could do it with now is Thor. Like if Chris Hemsworth took a 10-year break and then came back and did another one.
Yeah, or Rhodey, or like there's a lot of characters that we're not doing a lot with right now that could just leave and then come back and finally get a movie.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't be, whatever you did with it, it wouldn't be as impactful. I mean, if you brought, Iron Man back from the dead, I mean, people don't, that's a bad idea, but I'm just saying, like, if you did that, it would be a big deal, but, or like if you de-aged Captain America again, this is all barring, like, bringing those actors back for a character that's a different version in the multiverse. That would be different. That wouldn't feel like a decades later sequel because it would be a new character, right? Based on an old one. But any way you slice it, I just don't think for most characters it would be as impactful as a thing that we never thought we'd see again. Like, it wouldn't be like bringing back the Spider-Man for people, I don't think.
Yeah. And I don't think it would confuse everyone and kill
because
the
we put
MCU, like
whole
he says.
universes to bed. I'm sorry, what were you saying?
And I don't think it would confuse everyone and kill the entire MCU, like he says in his super chat. Like,
oh,
it would
is that
just
what
be
he
like,
was suggesting? Okay.
I don't know what it wouldn't be confusing. It was just like, oh, we got another Thor movie 10 years too late.
Yeah. It would only confuse people if the character was dead.
Yeah, if it was Iron Man or something.
No, I think a thing like that is actually really plausible. That an actor goes, I'm really tired of these. I think it could happen with Doctor Strange. Because Cumberbatch is talking about how, like, he kind of misses playing different characters and he doesn't really want to be stuck in the MCU, and he's considering taking a break from it. I think he said that. I could see him maybe making one more movie or even not, leaving for a while and then coming back like a lot of years later. So no, actually, some of that is plausible. Some of that is plausible. Okay, moving right along. That was a good question.
All right, we got one next one from Philip Kelton. I'm not sure what he's talking about, but he says, this is just because Cap was a good parent first.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know what you're referring to.
I don't know when that came through, if he was talking about you going to check on your kids.
Maybe so. Maybe he said that during the break. Thanks for that compliment. I appreciate it. But no, I mean, I always have to put my family first, of course. I knew it was a little bit of a risk to broadcast tonight. We picked a weird week to do this. I forgot my wife was going to be out of town, and I thought about canceling the show, but I had already, like, days ago announced it, and we were going to do the T-shirt launch and everything, and I was like,
oh, wow.
If I can figure out a way, and then my dad was coming over, I totally forgot that was happening. Like, I really botched this evening.
I was like, you invited, you asked me to do it. I was like, whoa.
No, I did, but when I did, I had forgotten that Sarah was out of town and that my dad was supposed to come over tonight. And my dad was here a little bit earlier in the evening, so I hung out with him some. But I was like, Dad, I got a show at 8. Like, at first I suggested he just come and do part of the show with us.
Oh yeah.
And he decided, well, we kicked it around. He was thinking about maybe doing that. And I told him what the topic was, and he was kind of curious about it. I'm glad we didn't do that. He wouldn't have gotten a chance to talk much, I don't think. There was just so much to cover with that.
Yeah.
And Dad doesn't keep up with the MCU and stuff real hard. What he wanted to talk about is just how it's affected, like, sales in his store and online and stuff. That he's, like, superheroes not selling the way it used to. So that's interesting.
Wow, that's another... That's an interesting topic too.
That's a whole other component to this whole thing, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know where children are with superheroes right now.
It's hard, right? Because the only children you know are like your friends' children, who of course are going to be into superheroes. Like, of course, my children are into superheroes because I'm raising them, and you're raising yours. So.
And my own, like, it's
we
what I do for a living. Like, they're surrounded by it. Yeah.
We can't go ask and hang out with children that we don't know their parents. That's weird. Don't do that, people. Don't go asking children if they're into superheroes.
Yeah, I mean, you can. It's risky. I'm not sure I'd recommend it, but you just start knocking on doors. I was just wondering, I know this is a really weird question, but look, I'm not a weirdo. I have children. I have 5 kids, but I was just wondering if I could hang out with your 10-year-old for like 10 minutes just to find out if he gives a crap about superheroes. You can take a poll. It wouldn't be as weird if you took a poll. It would be weird, but it wouldn't be as weird. It wouldn't be the same thing as, like, can I take your kid out for ice cream? It would just be, I need to ask him, like, 3 questions. You can be present in the room. I just need to know if he likes Spider-Man or not.
Can I speak to your child for about 20 minutes while you step outside? Oh, that's really weird. That's what we're announcing. That's our new show.
I'm not going to do that. That's a terrible show. No one would watch that or participate.
Kids react to Cap and DJ's questions. Senior Sticks, $2. Will you option your first book for a Netflix or sci-fi? I love using that as a term, by the way, a Netflix.
A Netflix, yeah. Well, I don't know that Netflix is going to be greenlighting a lot more TV shows given I mean, I guess they're going to have to stay alive. But anyway, I was just joking. I would not be opposed to it. If the opportunity ever arose, certainly, but I'm not. That's not an avenue that I'm pursuing. I'm not even pursuing publishing right now. Like, I'm kind of, when I'm writing stuff, I'm kind of writing for myself, and I'll show it to you guys, and maybe at some point I'll try to get rolling on publishing again, or at least get a little bit more serious about self-publishing. But for whatever reason, this has kind of been enough for me lately. And then and I haven't had time to write fiction in the last year. But man, when I wrote my last novel, I really was going to go the nines with trying to publish, and then I realized it was a thing I kind of wrote for myself, and I didn't need anybody to read it. It was weird. Like, I still haven't put that out in print. I've just been having a hard time prioritizing it. Like, I did the audiobook because I knew some of you guys really wanted it to read it, but I had this weird experience with that where it was like, for whatever reason, like, the work was enough. That was like that was the point of it, and it didn't matter if anybody saw it. It was weird. So I don't know, my ambitions have really changed, I suppose, and different projects are different, certainly, but yeah, I don't mean to be unambitious, I guess, but I don't know, I also am kind of leery just about, like, how some I don't think it would ever happen anyway, but like how some movies and TV shows are made, like if people hated it, that would be the legacy of the thing, you know, and that would be sad.
Yeah. Chewbacca's Lover, $5.
Thanks.
Actually, he wants me to read all his together, so I'll skip that one. Senior Sticks, $2. Cap, we always got the Sonyverse. Craven could hit.
Oh yeah, good call. Sure. You I like your optimism.
I think even if somehow Sony pulled out like the best superhero movie ever, it's still not a hit. It's Craven. Like what? You could make it the best movie ever. It's not a popular thing. Like that's
no. They're just scraping now. Like, and look, Craven could be a popular villain in a Spider-Man movie, and then if people, what they're doing is they're pretending like they had breakout characters in movies they didn't make, and giving them movies. That's what they're doing, right?
They're doing it backwards. Yeah, they're doing spin-offs backwards.
Yeah, because they keep talking about them like spin-offs. Like you hear that word used all the time, like Spider-Man spin-off. It's not a spin-off. Those characters weren't in anything first. Doesn't make any sense. And Spider-Man's not involved. So,
and they're still moving forward, even
but
though
Morbius feels like a movie.
Twice.
I think they're going to some other universe where Morbius was a really liked villain in a Spider-Man movie, and then they kidnap that universe's Jared Leto, and then they bring him here, and then they make a movie, and they forget that we didn't. They think, well, it doesn't matter if you saw that movie. He was a breakout there, so if we make him his own thing, it'll be breakout here. That's what they're doing, clearly. They're making their thing about a multiverse now, or about the multiverse, not just because Marvel's doing that, but because they actually secretly used the real multiverse to make their movies. That's what's happening.
If they had access to a real one, they would understand it, at least at all, because the ending of Venom 2, or Morbius, that I've heard is horrendous.
It's insane. It's terrible. It's somehow worse than both of the after credit scenes with Venom with Venom 2 and No Way Home respectively, and I don't know how that's even possible. But don't all three of those feel that way? Like, I mean, we haven't seen Craven yet, but just the way they've pitched that, it sounds like a breakout character that gets his own... And then, like, Venom, it feels like a breakout character that is getting his own movie, even though he wasn't in anything.
They're not even... At least with Venom, he's the most popular character, according to Avi Arad, but they're not even picking ones that could carry a movie, even if they were spin-offs. They're picking Morbius and Craven.
Imagine, because a character, even if they were, this is so weird, even to talk about, even if these were characters that were in movies and were liked in the first place, it doesn't mean that it makes sense to make a movie about them, or if you make a good movie about them, that enough people will care for it to be viable, for it to validate how much money you would have to spend on it. Imagine, this is what Venom feels like, and I'm saying this partly just because it is Tom Hardy. Imagine, instead of Dark Knight Rises, we just made Bane the movie. Like, you take this really weird, quirky version of Bane that's got this insane voice, and you go, that's the ticket, he's weird. We'll make him his own movie.
He was popular in the 90s? That's so weird.
It's gonna be a you can almost, it almost makes more sense to make a shared Batman universe without Batman than it does Spider-Man, I guess, just because a lot of those villains have kind of had their own story and you could do like a bunch of Arkham Asylum stuff, and frankly Gotham attempted this and that didn't work because it didn't have a Batman in a batsuit. It just didn't work because it was terrible. But anyway, I digress. We still have super chats coming in, and we're trying to end the show. So
trying and failing.
Yeah.
Smarty
but
Pants.
Thank you guys for your interest. Really appreciate it. I'm not rushing the end of this now because everybody's in bed, and I actually can get away with staying up and doing this now. But we will try to wrap up soon. Go ahead. And I'm also waiting for that T-shirt question, and I still don't feel like I've heard it yet.
Yes, but DJ does need to get some sleep soon because he's going to the movie theater.
I'm sorry,
night.
DJ. I wasn't even thinking about that. My apologies. Okay, we'll wrap up quick. Yeah.
All right, Smarty Pants tutoring $5.
Dude, I'm so sorry. I got wrapped up in things. I know.
I didn't even realize it was 11:30.
You've got work tomorrow. I'm a jerk. I'm sorry. Okay, we're leaving now. I'll do your super chats Thursday. Bye, everybody.
Smarty Pants tutoring $5. Cap, what are your thoughts on Better Call Saul?
This and Orville both keep coming up, so I'm going to say the same thing I've had to say a few times, which is I am not caught up on that. I need to go back and start it all over again because it's been too long since I watched the first couple of seasons, and I don't remember it, and I tried to get back in on 3 or 4, I can't remember, and I couldn't remember enough of what had happened, so I started over, and I have not had time to go back through my rewatch. So yeah, I'm not caught up, and I know they're getting into more like Breaking Bad stuff, and I'm very excited to finally do that, but I just haven't yet. So anyway, thanks for reminding me though.
All right, then next up we got a 3-parter from Chewbacca's lover. Still going back and forth about the like movies aren't made for him thing. Chewbacca's lover,
sure.
$5. I just mean my dad was an adult when Matrix and Jurassic Park released, not a teenager. Blockbusters weren't just for 15 and under like now. Obviously, blockbusters are for young.
I don't 100% agree with that premise. I get what he's saying, but I think it's a generalization. I think we have blockbusters now that are. I mean, I know I said earlier that like the main demographic that MCU has always been aimed at is like 20-somethings, but they've had movies that feel like they're a little bit more sophisticated than that. And also, they're trying really hard to be accessible for everybody. So more of what it seems like is movies that are trying to be for everybody, like really accessible, but then feel like they have to throw in a lot of like, you know, meme humor and that kind of stuff in order to appeal to the kids. Is kind of what I'm seeing. But and we also made lots of blockbusters in the 90s that were for a, you know, younger group of people, and you might not consider especially sophisticated.
Yeah, I think it just depends on what you're interested in. There's always stuff made that's not for you. And then he goes on to say,
like,
obviously,
there's lots of bad blockbusters in the 90s, man. Like,
yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah, Matrix and Jurassic Park were not the only ones that came out in the 90s. Obviously, he says blockbusters are for younger people, but people in their 20s and 30s enjoyed them and were excited through the 90s and 2000s. Not like now. I think we just disagree on that. And then he says, third part, I'd get it if I was 40, but I shouldn't feel like nothing is made for me in my 20s. Everything feels just so childish for the smartphone Zoomers.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I get, I don't know, I actually agree with a lot of this sentiment, and I don't want to stay on this for too long. Thank you so much for the super chats, but we've got to finish up here and get to some other topics. But I don't know. I guess where I was disagreeing was just in like who these things are aimed at in certain decades and stuff.
Daniel Davis makes a really good point. He says
there are a lot of real quick. I'll just say there are a lot of people that I've talked to that are in their 20s that are feeling old now, and like things are not for them that wouldn't have had that probably a decade ago. I mean, yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm not articulating this very well, but I'm sorry. What were you saying?
Daniel Davis has a good point that says blockbusters are for everyone. So like, yeah, that's like the one genre where they're trying to rope everybody in. So it's weird that that's the one that he's kind of stuck on. But yeah, what you're saying, Kat, might just be a result of like how fast internet time is these days, where we're feeling older faster.
Yeah, I think there is a lot of that. Well, and I mean, like,
I'm older than you, and I don't feel like nothing's made for me. Like, he says everything. Like, what is he talking about? Is he just talking about superhero stuff, or is he talking about, like, all movies? Because there's tons of stuff that's good.
Well, he's saying, the problem is the word blockbuster, because it applies to so many things now.
Yeah.
You know, like, so when you're talking about just the big tentpole stuff, like superhero things and stuff that wishes it was superhero things, and like your Fast and Furious and those sorts of things, it I see why you're saying that, and there might just be certain elements of it where the whole package isn't that way, but you get certain meme bait humor, and because I think he was harping real hard on humor earlier, right? When you get that kind of stuff, it can kind of tarnish the whole movie for you. Like, I have felt kind of out of touch when people will be really annoyed about certain humor in movies that's just because it was in a meme 1,000 times, and I didn't see that meme because I don't pay attention to a lot of that stuff, and so it didn't really bother me that much. And like, I've had people almost like annoyed and offended at me for not being bothered by certain jokes in movies, because it's like, but Cap, it's least common denominator, and it's just stealing a meme joke, and I'm like, I didn't know that joke though. So like it just didn't hit me the way it hit you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've definitely had that too. Um, Philip Kelton, Sony could make their villains movies work, but they have to be the work to make them good first. They have to do the work to make them good first, I think he means.
Well, the whole thing is just coming from the wrong attitude and spirit in the first place. And I feel like if they had the right attitude about the shared universe thing, and maybe not even that, but just like, you know, making movies based on these characters that they have access to, they wouldn't be doing it the way they're doing it. It wouldn't be a shared Spider-Man universe without Spider-Man. Like it's just, you know, you almost give them too much credit when you say that. It's like it's not about telling stories with them, clearly. Like that's not the point in the first place. It's just and you could get great movies even from the starting place of, well, what do you know, here's our list of characters that we have, here's our Rolodex, pull something out, and then we got this person, who's that, and then just give it to a really talented person that could get excited about that. That's not really what they're doing.
Yeah. The Day Ghost, will Craven hunt Lyle Crocodile and Clifford?
That's immediately a better movie than probably whatever they're going to make, Austin. Good to see you, buddy. Thanks, man.
Have you seen that Lyle Crocodile trailer yet?
Oh, yeah. I showed it to Austin because Austin hadn't seen it yet, and I knew that it would be Clifford all over again, and he'd be really excited about it. And
No, it's Paddington all over again is what it exactly is. Like, to a T, that's the Paddington movies.
No, but for Austin, it's Clifford all over again.
He's excited about it?
In that he thought that was so ridiculous looking, he couldn't wait to see it. He's having that with Clifford, yeah. And I knew as soon as I saw Clifford, I was like, this. And also Clifford all over again, in that I knew Austin would insist that we do a blind commentary on the channel when it comes to video, and that is what we're going to do. He just insisted on it. And we're going to do the bingo board again and everything, yep.
That's amazing.
For us, it will be a sequel to Clifford.
It looks terrible, but the Paddington trailers look terrible too, so I don't know what to think.
Well, and I don't understand the Paddington thing. Like I don't think those are as great as 99% of the universe, especially 2. I don't get that. That first one's good, but anyway, I don't know. I'm off on a ledge with that whole thing, but
yeah, I saw that trailer when I went to the theater the other day, and I was like, what is this?
It's insane. It looks awful. That CG is the worst.
Oh, Philip Kelton.
Wouldn't it almost be better if the crocodile was in 2D animation, just to be all whimsical about it?
Oh yeah, but we just don't do 2D animation. It's impossible. Can't do it.
Oh, we can't do it unless we're Chip and Dale and we're also doing 3D animation, or unless we're Space Jam 2 and we're also doing 3D animation.
Yeah, it's got to be a gimmick. We can't just do it. What are you, crazy? What is it, Japan? Get out of here.
What is it, Japan? Okay, I've been sitting in this chair too long. We've got to finish up here.
Got 2 more. Let's do it. Knock them out. Philip Kelton, here is your T-shirt question. Wow, the stones on this guy. Why didn't...
This guy's got some self-confidence. Who was this? So I can remember who to send a T-shirt to.
Philip Kelton.
Oh, Philip Kelton. Okay. All right. Let's find out.
He's paying in Mexican pesos, so you might have to pay some shipping. He says, here is your T-shirt question. Why didn't read how much money I spend in that good parent super chat? Sorry, I didn't. This is on me. I didn't read how much his super chat cost on the parent one. Well, because the parent one threw me off. I love that he put this in.
I never even knew if that was a super chat question or not because you didn't read it. But
because I was so thrown off by the question itself. I love that he put another super chat in, not to clarify what he was talking about in that one, but
I want everyone to know how much money I spend.
But to critique that I didn't read that it was 200 Mexican pesos.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for the Mexican pesos. We appreciate it.
Yeah, I've been to Mexico now, and it seems like you're spending way more money than you are, because like 200 Mexican pesos is like $1.
Well, Japan's the same way. Where everything's like, this costs 20,000 yen. And you're like, that sounds like a lot of yen. Oh, that's not as much yen as I thought it was. The hell is yen?
And last one, Matthew Mertens. $9.99. In 50 years, I want to see Marvel sign a legal contract stating their epic conclusions to the MCU is actually the last movie. Like rock bands agreeing their last reunion tour is indeed their last tour.
That's funny. I mean, they didn't make that pronouncement with Endgame, right? Like it was the last thing they'd ever make, and then psych, we're still making movies.
I wish it had been called Spider-Man Psych.
Psych, we're still making movies?
Spider-Man Psych, No Way Home. Or not No Way Home. Far From Home. Why'd they name that? Those are the stupidest names.
Especially because the first movie wasn't even about Homecoming.
Oh, man.
That's so weird.
Well, we've done it.
Their epic conclusion to the MCU is actually the last movie. Yeah. I think what would be better is if they signed a contract saying that at some point they have to have a conclusion. Because my worry with the MCU is that eventually it has to just peter out. And that might be 20, 30, 40 years from now. Who knows? But I don't know that it's going... Because it feels too much like a singular franchise to me to not have... When it finally is done, like a just definitive endpoint that is actually a solid conclusion in some way. I don't need it to be Beneath the Planet of the Apes where we destroy the Marvel universe or anything, but it would be, but it would be really sad if it was just this is the last movie we made. And it made $100 million at the box office.
It's like it's like another Ant-Man movie, and just.
Or like the Netflix Marvel shows, the way they petered out, or like the Arrowverse is petering out. Like, I bet they will try to make some kind of like, epic finale thing with that, and it won't work. Or actually, it probably won't. Probably everything will get canceled before they have a chance to do that crossover. That's what I bet.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
Okay, DJ, here's how I want to handle the T-shirt thing.
Real quick, we got one more in. Philip Kelton clarifying. He says, no, 20 pesos is $1.
Oh, okay.
Excuse me, sir. And he paid 20 pesos to tell me that.
Oh, thanks, man. Thanks for thanks for letting us know how much DJ was exaggerating. So you notice I was careful not to say how much 20,000 yen is because I don't remember, but it's not as much as it sounds. I can say
20
that.
Pesos being $1, that means $20 is 200 pesos. It seems like I'm spending a lot of money for just like a gallon of milk and a loaf of bread.
So we had a lot of really thoughtful, insightful questions about tonight's lead-in topic, and it makes it really difficult to pick amongst them for who should get tonight's prize. So, but nothing that was just like super clever and that I couldn't believe somebody asked, or something that made me crack up real hard. So, DJ, because you are the moderator and you had to read all of the questions and you're seeing more names than I am through the evening, I'm going to let you just pick an MVP for question asking. So don't make it based on how much money anybody spent on super chats and such, but just general interaction in the comments, both in interacting with me and you, but also with other folks in the comments. Who would you say, just of the commenters, was the greatest commenter of the evening overall? I am leaving this at your feet because you had to read them all night long.
Okay. Giving the moderator a little bit of responsibility.
Yeah, sorry about that. But I think this makes more sense than anything, because the only fair way to do this would be to take all the names and put them in a hat, and I don't have time to do that.
I gotcha. So it's interesting because we had a lot of guys putting in like splitting them up over several. So like, Chewbacca's lover and Super Billy basically asked one question, but they kind of like split them up over a bunch of different ones.
A lot of really complex, multi-level kinds of questions tonight. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Let me see. I'm gonna. He was talking about kind of different things. I wanted to give it to someone who was kind of like furthering the conversation going about the Marvel stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
riveting. This is riveting. Just watching.
Yeah, no,
me,
I know, and I really
skimming
reneged responsibility here, and I apologize for that. But you were, of course, looking at the comments all night long, and so I feel like you're more qualified to do this than I am, since I can't base it on a particular question. Dagan Spear, the CW mention reminds me, any thoughts on Superman and Lois? Have you considered doing a season 1 review? I don't know if you've done that. And 2 is over now, 2, I think. No, I need to, just all these things that have piled up on me that I would have to make the whole channel about to get to all of them in anything like a timely fashion. I started a rewatch of the first season again because it's been too long a couple days ago with Jason, but I haven't gotten past the pilot. So I am going to watch through that. I can't promise reviews or when they'll happen, but I want to do that. All I can say with some of this stuff is that I'd really like to. And that is one that I might want to prioritize even more than Orville, because I think there's more folks on the channel that would care about me talking about that. And those are both things that I'd like to talk about equally. I mean, I haven't even gotten to a Strange New Worlds review because it's just been too long since I've seen those episodes. So I feel weird right now, pretty rusty, sitting down and trying to say anything about that. So I don't know. Maybe it'll be enough just to, read through episode synopses again real quick and rack my brain and then just go, oh yeah, I remember some things. Here's my sign flip.
I think I'm going to go with, and I don't know this person very well, but I don't know how often they're here. I don't know if they're still here. If you're still here.
Mutali says that you're my lapdog. I'm sorry, DJ.
Sicken me on the chat. I'm going to go with Smarty Pants tutoring.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Is that unbiased? We read one of his regular chat questions, and he also put in a super chat, and I've seen him popping around in the chat a little bit. Smarty Pants tutoring?
Yeah, and he furthered the conversation. Absolutely. Yeah. No, I agree. Yep. Okay. Well, Smarty Pants Tutoring gets a T-shirt, and I hope he's still watching because I'm not sure how to reach out to him otherwise. I'll put out a post on social media if I don't hear from him. But yeah, send me an email if you would. In our email address is in the About page on YouTube. And send me an address, and I will send you a T-shirt. And we'll do this every so often. Give MVPs or just really great commenters.
Yeah, we have merch now. We can do this. We can do giveaways. I don't know if he's still watching. Hopefully, he watches this back.
Good Old Gamer says, if you feel bad for being childless, Cap has that covered for all of us. That's great. Dayghost Austin, Cap is like, oh, the questions sucked. You picked the best, DJ. No, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. They would just, when they're all on such the same vein, it's hard to pick between. I feel like it would be very arbitrary. So if I have to be arbitrary, it'd be better to do the MVP thing because it's automatically a little bit less arbitrary. Where it's like, overall, this was a great commenter. He was real active and yeah.
He was very involved. Maybe not the best to do this on the show where we were talking about one subject pretty much the whole time because it was a very even playing
field. Well, I didn't know
that
was gonna happen. I didn't know the whole show would be about this one topic.
No, you picked a good topic.
It's the lead-in topic. Sometimes it happens. At the beginning, I was like, we could do 2.5 hours on this, and we did 2.5 hours on this.
We did. People really liked it. Glad you liked the show, guys. Thanks for joining us on Tuesday.
We appreciate it. I'm sorry for keeping DJ up so late. We're going to go ahead and get going now. We'll see you again on Thursday. Don't know what the lead-in topic will be yet. It might be about the MCU slate because we haven't done that yet. But it being a Thursday, there will probably be some kind of bombshell news that happens that day that suddenly we'll have to cover. And I'll have to try to get DJ to scramble to make a thumbnail 3 hours before the show because a thing happens. So anyway, thanks again for watching. DJ, thanks for being a trooper and for taking care of the T-shirts and the comments. And it would be impossible to make this anything like as good and look almost something close to something, anything like professional without you.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I appreciate it, and I enjoy doing it. It's great.
Thanks again, everybody, for being here. We'll see you again real soon. Tomorrow night, Austin and I are doing a request on, speaking of Chewbacca's lover, another arc of Punisher Max Widowmaker requested by him. So that's tomorrow night's show. Thursday's the Captain Logan show. And then Friday night, we're doing another request on, of all things, the the original South Park movie, which would be a very strange thing for me to talk about. So all of that and more coming your way. I was Captain Logan. This was DJ Martinez.
See you later, guys.
See you later, folks. Bye, everybody.